all to no avail. I found fire grates, still warm to the touch, baskets lined with fresh breadcrumbs. I found water gurgling down sinks, shower heads still dripping, wreathed in steam. I found music boxes skipping a single line of music, tin monkeys shaking tin cups as their clockwork slowly winds down, and once, in what looked like an understair storage, I found an old upright piano and let my fingers walk out a few scales. I gasped as the shrill notes cut through me and filled my body with a half-remembered terror. I slammed the fallboard down and locked the wretched thing before I scurried on towards the new horrors. I wonder sometimes how far away I am now from the city. The windows are still grime-smeared and only just translucent, but the dim light coming through them is tinged at the edges with flicking green. The paintings on the walls are strange. The walls themselves are strange, in ways I can't express. I feel unwelcome, watched and barely tolerated. I should leave. I would leave. If I could find my way out.
Hey there kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta once again. I apologize if my voice sounds a little bit strange. I'm still fighting off some of the later effects of the flu. However, I really wanted to bring this new episode to you of Unsolved Murders. This is a new series I'm really trying out. I have been enjoying working on it so far, as well as the writer who's been helping me out with this. If you guys are enjoying the series, please let me know. Leave a like on the video, leave a comment, and let me know what kind of mysteries you'd like to see in the future. And for tonight's story, I'd like you guys to think about something. Think about fear. And I know that's something we talk about quite a bit on this channel. But how fear forces you to cover things up in a way that maybe you'd never think that you'd want to before. Fear of the unknown, fear of getting caught. Fear in general.
Welcome to Twitch.
In April 1943, 4 teenage boys were searching for birds' nests on a private estate in Hagley Woods, located near Birmingham in England Midlands. One of the boys, Bob Farmer, age 15, decided to climb up an ancient wych elm tree to gain an advantage.
Okay.
Farmer looked down the hollow trunk and discovered a human skull facing up towards him. On the skull was a clump of hair that was hanging off the remaining flesh of the forehead. The skull had 2 crooked teeth gaping out of the mouth. After Farmer told the others about his discovery, the boys placed the skull back into the tree trunk and ran out of the woods. Once out, the boys agreed not to tell anyone of their find. They believed that they could have gotten in serious trouble because they were not allowed onto the private land. However, one of the boys was so upset by this discovery that he told his father, and the police were called, regardless of their pact. When the police returned to the tree, they discovered the body of a young woman. One of her hands was missing. Inside of the mouth of the skull, a piece of taffeta was found. Along with the body, pieces of clothing with the labels cut out, a pair of battered shoes, and a gold ring were also found. Near the tree, the bones of the woman's missing hand were found scattered. Pathologist James Webster was called in to aid the police in figuring out who this woman was and the possible cause of death. Webster determined that the woman had died approximately 18 months prior to discovery. He also stated that she was approximately 35 years old and had mousy-colored hair. Webster stated that she was 5 feet tall and had given birth in the past and had irregular teeth. Webster could not find any obvious injuries and stated that she died as a result of the cloth that had been stuffed down her throat. He also stated that she must have been placed inside the tree trunk shortly after she died, due to the fact that she would not have fit inside the trunk once rigor mortis had set in. With the information from Webster, the police were able to create a detailed description of the woman in the tree, However, no one came forward with an answer, and a search of the 3,000 known missing persons provided no answer as well. Along with these two methods, a nationwide dental search provided no solace as to who this woman could have been. It is believed that the woman had dental work completed 1 year prior to her death. However, there were no traces that she had any surgeries done. As time progressed, attention from the press declined, and the war was at the center of everyone's mind. The area where the body was found suffered years of bombing, which caused life for those around the area to be difficult. Therefore, the body in the tree became an afterthought. By Christmas time, the locals had forgotten almost completely about the case. However, this changed when graffiti started to pop up in certain areas. The first piece of graffiti that was spotted stated, "Who put Lubella down the witch elm?" The second piece of graffiti spotted was Hagley Woods, Bella. And the final piece of graffiti that was commonly spotted was Who put Bella in the witch elm? The graffiti was found on buildings all around the West Midlands, appearing to have been done by the same person as the handwriting was
All
similar.
right.
This led investigators and the public to believe that someone in the area knew something.
It's gonna get
more than
dreadful.
others. After the graffiti began appearing, the woman in the tree became known as Bella. The public and the police began referring to her as such.
But
Although the graffiti was able to give some
it is
sort of
necessary.
name to the woman, there was nothing else to come from it.
All right, let's connect
The
these
police
two
did not be able to find
first,
the person responsible
and we'll take it up to
for
the rock.
graffiti or answer any other questions regarding
The
the
rock
case.
says,
A folklorist, Margaret Murray, believed that Bella may have been killed in an occult ceremony. Murray believed that the removal of her hand is typical with a black magic execution. The common theory that Bella was a victim of a coven of witches was increasingly popular for a long period of time. Since there was an absence of leads from the police, the case went cold, and those who had their interests piqued were left without any real answers. In 1953, journalist Wilfred Byford Jones began to write about the cold case for his news journal, the Wolverhampton Express and Star. This led to the interest in the case to increase after a decade of disinterest. This led to him receiving his first solid lead in the case. He received a letter that offered new details of what happened to Bella. The letter was only signed by a single name, Anna. According to the letter, Bella was murdered due to her involvement with a Nazi spy ring. The spy ring had operated in the Midlands in the early 1940s. During this time, hundreds of German spies had been captured in Britain during the war. The Midlands were a valuable resource of intelligence due to its high amounts of munitions factories. The letter entailed evidence that Bella was involved in a Nazi spy ring. Byford Jones reported that the letter stated, "Finish your articles on the Witch Elm crime by all means. They are interesting to your readers, but you will never solve the mystery. The one person who could give the answer is now beyond the jurisdictions of the earthy courts. The affair is closed and involves no witches, black magic, or moonlight rites." The letter was signed Anna of Calverley. After correspondence, Anna revealed herself as Una Mosop. After she revealed herself, Mosop told the full story. Una's husband, Jack Mosop, worked at a local munitions factory in 1940. He came into some money after meeting a mysterious man that went by the name the Dutchman. Later, Jack told Una that the Dutchman was a Nazi agent. Jack was passing information on local industrial sites to the Dutchman. This information was then passed on to another agent. This agent was posing as a cabaret performer.
Hey, what the
at a
hell?
local
Thank you.
theater. The Midlands at the time of the war were bombarded by the German Air Force. The information Jack had given to the Dutchman would have been extremely valuable for the Nazis due to the fact that the information would cause optimal damage to Britain's efforts in the war. Jack Mosop met his contact at a pub close to Hagley Wood. The Dutchman was seen arguing with a Dutch woman. The Dutchman ordered Mosop to drive them both to Clent Hills. However, on the way to the location, the argument had become violent, and the Dutchman strangled the woman in the car. The situation caused Mosop to fear for his life, and he agreed to help carry the woman's body to Hagley Wood, where they had planned to bury her in an old hollowed-out elm tree. The events and the murder of Bella caused Jack Mosop to have a nervous breakdown. In 1941, Jack Mosop was institutionalized and died a year later.
Yikes.
The information given by Unimosop fit the timescale given by the pathologist that examined Bella. The death was estimated approximately 18 months prior to discovery. This would place the time of death of Bella to be around the middle of 1941. The information given to Byford Jones was convincing enough that the police and the United Kingdom's Domestic Counterintelligence Agency became involved. These intelligence outfitters were able to verify some of the details that Una provided. However, they were not able to find the remaining perpetrators. With these intelligence services involved, it is commonly speculated that there may have been a cover-up over the investigation of the information provided. The details of the spy rings may have been classified due to the short amount of time after the war when the information was given. The theory that there was a cover-up over the investigation became largely believed when the remains of Bella had gone missing.
It's a pretty good triangle.
Due to this fact, there could not be any further forensics examinations. The case and story of Bella faded into the background due to there not being any new information. Occasionally, a new piece of graffiti would be written. This would cause the public to be interested in the case. There weren't any new leads for the case for 15 years until a historian, Donald McCormick, wrote a book. His book, titled Murder by Witchcraft, was written about the case using the spy ring theory. McCormick obtained files that recorded German military intelligence. According to the information gathered by McCormick, a Nazi agent named Luhrer was operating in the Midlands in 1941. This agent had a Dutch girlfriend living in Birmingham named Clarabella Dronkers. Clarabella Dronkers was around 30 years old and had crooked teeth, like Bella found in the witch elm. Coincidentally, there was a Nazi spy that was captured in mid-1942 and was executed at Wandsworth Prison on New Year's Eve of 1942. This spy's name was Johannes Marinus Dronkers. It is believed that Clarabella was the spy's wife due to the wedding ring found on the body. It is also believed that Bella was a foreigner due to there not being any trace of her living or existing in England prior to her body being found. There is a possibility that there was a love triangle occurring, or that Bella threatened to reveal the existence of the spy ring to the British authorities. It is unknown of Bella's full involvement in the spy ring or of any other matters. Finally, a British soldier told author Ian Tofam that he had seen Nazi files that detailed agents that had been operating in the Midlands. One operative that had matched the description of Bella was codenamed Clara and was parachuted in the area in 1941. Recently, new declassified files gave new light on the spy ring theory. In the files, the details of the arrest and interrogation of Czech-born Gestapo agent named Joseph Jacobs stated there was a photograph of a young woman found on his person. This woman in the photo was Clara Barrow, a cabaret singer and German movie.
Damn it all.
According to Jacobs, Barrow had been recruited by the Gestapo to be a secret agent. The information given by Jacobs checked out. She was a German cabaret singer and had worked in Birmingham for years before the war and had developed a local accent. Jacobs stated she was supposed to follow him to England. However, he was captured, and it is believed that this did not happen. There was no word from Barrow after 1941, the year Bella supposedly died. It is believed that she could have been recognized by her English fans from before the war. The risk of being recognized would have caused a greater problem for the spy ring and would have potentially led to her being killed. While these theories have strong points, there are areas that may disprove them. Firstly, none of the remaining members of the ring were ever found, despite multiple extensive searches. This allows many theories and thoughts to be made on the spy ring. And secondly, pathologist James Webster stated that Bella was 5 feet tall. It's been stated that Beryl was known to be a tall woman. Online databases say that Beryl died in 1942. These facts could potentially rule out Beryl as Bella. However, there are not any details to rule out the Dutch woman seen arguing with the Dutch man. The young boys who've originally
good
found
enough.
Hannah's body, for the unfortunate Mr. Mosop, who could have helped to hide her body. For every other person who knew, every other person who was in hiding. That's what I want you to take away from tonight's episode. How fear overtook them. How fear led to this mystery ultimately being unsolved.
Ooh, unsolved. An unsolved murder.
Hey there, kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta, and I wanted to tell you all thank you so much for listening to tonight's story, or watching tonight's story if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, that means you're probably on the podcast that's available on iTunes, on the Google Play Store, and is now actually available on Spotify.
The Google
And it doesn't
Play
take much
Store.
data. So, hey, that's a thing. If you guys aren't listening on YouTube or Spotify, then I have no idea how else you could have found me. Unless you found one of those books on Amazon. You know, the Creepypasta Collection, Volume 1, Volume 2. Those are things, too. Oh, well. I don't know how you would have heard me there, seeing as this was recorded like 2 years after those came out. Well, anyway. Thanks for listening, folks. And sweet dreams. Sometimes, otherworldly beings find interesting ways to try and contact you. They might use a Ouija board, or maybe come to you in a dream, or sometimes they speak to another person. They each have their own style and preference that's particular to them. The one who contacted Jack spoke to him through his computer, I guess you could say. The communication was through on-screen text. The first time it happened, Jack
That
was
doesn't
sitting at his
make
computer
sense.
playing solitaire.
But whatever.
The blinking red light from the router indicated that his internet connection was going down. This was at least a weekly occurrence, and Jack was getting used to this spotty internet service. As he moved his cards, the game faded into a solid black screen, and the red text appeared.
Yeah. We're gonna need another
Hi,
one
Jack.
right here.
I need a favor from you. You're a very special person, and I know you'll help me. I can't ask this of just anyone.
All right.
I really need your help. Jack paused for a second. The router light was still blinking red. Is this some sort of joke? He couldn't help but wonder. Several minutes later, the message continued. Yes, Jack. I know this is weird for you, but I don't want to worry you. This is just a small, easy favor I need. I'll make sure you're rewarded. Now nearly in a panic, Jack reached around and pulled the internet cable completely from the wall. Still here, Jack? I don't want to waste any more of your time, so I'll get right to what I need. Tomorrow, when you go to work, I need you to move the large potted plant that's next to the elevator on the ground floor. All you have to do is pull it out 3 inches from the wall. If you do it at 8:17 a.m., nobody else will be in the area.
Why?
Jack sat there, refusing to respond, still trying to figure out what was happening. The writing continued. Look, Jack, I'm asking you because I know you'll do it. You won't let me down. You're special. We'll talk tomorrow. Jack pulled the power cord from the wall, and the computer went blank. Did that really just happen? He thought. Still shaking from the experience, he took a warm shower and got ready for bed, convincing himself that he'd either had some crazy dream or this was just some elaborate joke. But who would play that kind of joke on him? He didn't really have friends or enemies. He woke up the next morning feeling refreshed. Work would start at 8:30 a.m., and Jack was never late. He pulled into the parking lot at 8:10 a.m. Normally, he would just go right in, but the message had told him to move the plant at 8:17 a.m. Was he really going to do it? Overnight, Jack's fear had turned into curiosity. Let's say he moved the plant. He wouldn't be doing anything wrong or illegal, right?
Exactly.
The most reasonable course of action was to move the plant. He'd do it. Nothing would happen. and he'd be able to put this whole crazy matter behind him. 1 minute before 8:17, Jack left his car and walked towards the building. He entered the foyer at the exact time he was supposed to. The message was right. There was no one else around. Odd, Jack thought. The building was normally busy this time of morning, but this temporary lull had been accurately predicted. Fine, let's see what happens, Jack muttered to himself. He walked up to the large potted plant placed firmly between the two elevators in the lobby of the 10-story building. The plant looked like it was fake, a decoration people passed every day without really noticing. It was heavier than Jack realized. He put some might into his effort and pulled the plant out 3 inches to his best estimate. He stood back and looked at the plant, and then looked around the lobby. People were coming in behind him now. The lobby was starting to fill up again. Nobody seemed to notice the plant in a slightly different location. Nothing seemed different at all. Jack skipped the next elevator and waited. Waited for something. But nothing happened. Finally, Jack entered the elevator and made it to his 7th-floor cubicle, on time, like always. If you ever asked Jack's coworkers to describe him, you'd hear words like polite, quiet, respectful, and competent. And while those words were all accurate, they gave little indication of the truth. The truth that Jack really didn't like most people. Now, that's not to say that he disliked them, just that he had very little interest in getting to know them, or being their friend.
God, that sounds like me.
One. Allie, the girl who sat 2 cubicles down, was the only person he wanted to know more about. With her big smile, blonde hair, and beautiful figure, Jack was just interested in learning all about her. Despite his lack of success with women in the past, he was actually doing a fair job of getting to know her.
Now the problem is, why do I care? Why do I care about Jack?
The chats were 1 minute at first.
Why do I care about this specific fact about Jack?
Jack was surprised that she actually seemed to like him.
Not bad.
On this particular morning, their daily conversations lasted only a couple of minutes. As they exchanged their morning greetings and talked about Allie's wild night out, the elevator doors opened behind them. Out hobbled James Bentley, the boss of both Jack and Allie. James's loud complaining could be heard throughout the office. "Ugh, my damn foot!" What happened, James? Came the mumbled queries. "It's that damn plant they have in the lobby. I ran right into it, twisted my ankle." "James, you can barely walk. You need to go to the hospital," came Allie's concerned reply. "Can't do it now. Have a meeting all day. Too important to cancel. I'll just have to tough it out." Jack, feeling stunned, left Allie's cubicle mid-conversation and sunk down into his chair. It was his fault. He was sure of it. How could he have been so stupid and careless? Still, no use in worrying about it now. A twisted ankle would heal. Everything would be all right.
I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just a twisted ankle.
Upon his return home, Jack went immediately to his computer and turned it on. As soon as the computer booted up, the screen went black and a new message popped up. "How was your day, Jack?" He sat there, staring at the screen, not knowing how to answer. The message on the screen continued. "Actually, I know how your day was, but never let it be said that I'm not polite. You're wondering what's going on. You want to know why James Bentley had to twist his ankle. Well, Jack, this chain of events isn't done playing out. I don't want to tell you too much too soon, but this will all make sense to you in a short order. Just go to work tomorrow, like you normally do. Don't worry about a thing, Jack. You'll be rewarded. You're special. Talk to you tomorrow." Jack sat back in his chair. What was going on? Who was this that was sending him messages? Jack's curiosity was fully engaged, and he was almost a bit excited to see what was going to happen next. The next morning at work started off just as any ordinary day. Jack noticed that the plant had been pushed back fully against the wall, probably by the night cleaning crew. James Bentley showed up shortly after lunch, hobbling into his office on his one good foot. "Man, this foot's killing me," Jack could overhear him say, but apparently James still had a meeting he didn't want to miss. It wasn't until 3 o'clock that Jack saw him again. James, who always seemed to prefer Allie over others, came limping up to her cubicle.
Allie, you're not doing anything right now, are you?
No. Nothing. I can't wait until tomorrow, I guess.
Good. Will you please drive me to see my doctor? Probably should have gone yesterday, but I just couldn't get away. Pain's killing me right now. I don't think I can drive myself. Barely made it here this morning. I don't think that I could even push the gas pedal right now. See, we could take my car if you want.
Yeah, that's fine, James. I don't have any problem taking you. Turning to Jack, she said her goodbye. See you tomorrow, Jackie. She put on her coat
Jackie.
and slowly followed James as he struggled down the hallway.
See you tomorrow,
She gave a half turn and
Jackie.
a shrug in Jack's direction, with a little smile as she walked away. Jack felt even lonelier than normal when she was gone. It was 10 minutes later that they all heard the crash. It was preceded by the long horn of an 18-wheeler with screeching brakes. The collision itself was a
Ooh,
sickening thud
yikes.
of two large metal objects colliding. Even on the 7th floor, it was loud. The office workers gasped and ran to the windows. "Is that James's car?" one of them asked.
Hard to tell from up here,
Someone responded.
so banked up.
The horrifying implication of what just happened came to Jack immediately. No, he thought. That can't be true. Shaking all the way, he ran to the elevator and went to the ground floor along with several others from the office. Some of them were crying. As they joined the growing crowd around the scene of the accident, Jack could hear the far-off sound of emergency sirens. Looking past the gawkers,
Wait,
he
what?
could see that the 18-wheeler had hit James's car's broadside. Its driver had been thrown out into the pavement where he lay motionless. James was sitting in the passenger seat of his car, motionless but with a surprised look on his bloody face. Jack couldn't tell if he was alive or dead. The driver's side, where Allie was seated, had taken the hit. The space she had
Ooh.
occupied had been compacted to a third of its original size. Allie's head was smashed open, and her twisted body was broken and battered. The crowd was stunned. Tears, screams, sirens. That was all Jack could hear. Without going
Yep,
back into the building, Jack ran
rip
his car and
to
drove
Allie.
angry and sad, he made the journey home and to his computer. There the machine sat. He wanted to turn it on, but was afraid of what he'd find out. Was he really the one responsible for Allie's death? The whole chain of events
Yeah.
started with him.
In a
He
way.
knew that he was to blame. Jack reached for the power button and then pulled his hand back. Finally, after several minutes, he
What
found
the hell? Why
it
can't I?
to turn it on. The screen flickered and then went black, and the familiar text started appearing on the screen.
No, Jack. It's not your fault. I know you're blaming yourself, but all people die. Eventually, some just sooner than others.
Jack stared at the screen. He resisted the urge to
What the
throw
hell?
monitor to the ground. After a moment, the writing continued.
Jack, I'm gonna tell you something. And I really need you to seriously consider everything I'm about to say. You think you were in love with Allie. Truth is, you just wanted to fuck her. And please, excuse my language, but every once in a great while, it's best to be blunt. Jack, she wasn't the one for you. She would have made your life miserable, yeah. You would have eventually found the courage to ask her out. She actually was interested in you. She thought she'd make a good project. Sad really for her, not for you. I want you to think back to all the things she told you. Why did her last boyfriend break up with her?
Because she cheated on him. Jack mumbled under his breath.
Because she cheated on him, Jack. Same thing she would have done to you. She would have made you happy for about 2 months, then miserable for the next 4 years, sneaking around
Jeez, that-
laughing at you behind your back.
How long has it
spending
been
all your
already?
money.
30
Once you
minutes and
finally
that's
rid
all
her,
I
you've
did?
been so jaded that you'd never date again. This is true, Jack. I see all future possibilities, the ones that come to pass and the ones that don't.
This is so silly. Oh
see
my
that she
gosh,
really is
wow.
But you let your lust for her blind you to the truth. Together, you and I have made sure you avoid that path. One more thing, Jack. This isn't done playing out yet. There's more.
Alright,
Come.
let's
No, fuck you.
go this way.
Jack screamed and threw the monitor from the desk. It landed on the floor and sparked out. Jack barely got any sleep that night. And the next day he wasn't sure he was going to go to work, but the last words he'd been told had piqued his curiosity, and his anger had somewhat subsided. No work was done that day at the office. The company brought in grief counselors. People shared their thoughts, they cried, they hugged. James had actually survived the accident, but was in a coma. The
Damn,
doctors
really?
thought he might recover eventually, but nobody was really sure. Late in the afternoon, Jack was approached by Diego Salbarra, the head of the division. Diego was blunt and upfront, and he offered James's position to Jack. Technically, it would be a temporary position, but James wouldn't be back anytime soon. Diego promised him that the promotion would be made permanent once enough time had passed. "Let's just keep this low-key for now," Diego told him. "I know it might seem quick, but the Lancaster project James was working on can't be stopped. It's too important to the company. I need someone in charge right now. This can't wait." Stunned, Jack accepted the promotion. He left work with a strange mixture of feelings, not sure how he felt about anything. On his way home, he stopped at the electronics store, bought a new monitor. He made it home and powered up the computer. Once again, the writing came on screen. "Jack, I want to be the first to congratulate you. I'm proud of what you've accomplished." Jack stared at the screen. "Jack, I have to ask your forgiveness because I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm called the Seer. Like I told you before, I see what will be, I see what can be. Very powerful gift I have. But you know what, Jack? For all my power, I still can't do anything corporeal. I can predict, I can see, and with enough effort, I can even communicate, but I don't have a body. That's something that was taken from me a long, long time ago. That's why I need you, Jack. I'm an artist of sorts, an artist of human manipulation. You'll be my paintbrush and my canvas. I want you to work for me, Jack. It's all very simple. Just perform a simple task for me from time to time." Jack was becoming more and more curious.
I might be a little bit too anal about some of
I
the
want you to know a couple of things.
triangles.
First off, I'll never lie to you. Secondly, I'll never ask you to do anything which, taken by itself, is wrong or illegal. Yeah, bad things will result, and sometimes people will die. But they're gonna die eventually anyway, right, Jack? And the bad will always be balanced out by something good happening to you. Jack winced at this last idea, but he fought the urge to turn the computer off. The Seer was right. Everyone would die eventually. Why not let something good come of it? What about never lying to him? If he'd known at the time that Allie was going to die, he'd never go through with the original favor. But as he thought more about it, he realized the Seer hadn't lied to him, but had only withheld information. Still, Jack wondered if he could trust the Seer. "Work with me, Jack. Together we'll make incredible things happen. I'm just asking you to perform little tasks from time to time. But these little tasks will have great consequences. It's the beauty of my art. One single task produces something bad and something good. Oh, one last thing, Jack. I can see you are having trouble with this. If I stop talking to you right now, take you about 2 weeks to decide to join me. You know what, Jack? You would join me. Right, you're gonna say yeah. So instead of waiting, why don't you just say yes to me now? Let's just get started, Jack. And when all this is over, you're gonna thank me. I promise." Jack considered what the Seer had just said. His initial feelings of revolt were slowly fading. He paused, and for the first time he placed his fingers on the keyboard and responded directly to the Seer. "What do you want me to do next?" As years passed,
This is the number one soundtrack used by Mr. Creepypasta.
was rewarded for his actions
The
each
track
time.
is called
The
Vicious.
rewards often came in
By
unexpected,
Miyu.
interesting ways. One of the more memorable experiences for Jack happened about 2 years after he agreed to help the seer.
Jack, I need you to go downtown tomorrow,
The seer requested.
Enter Garmin's Liquor at exactly 12:37 p.m. A man will ask you a question. The answer you're to give him is 27.
As always, the seer's instructions were simple and direct, yet mysterious. The next day, as requested, Jack entered the store. In front of him, a burly construction worker was at the counter filling out a lottery payslip.
Let's see here,
Says the construction worker.
my wife's birthday, that's the 24th. My kid's ages is 2, 10, 13.
The man scratched his head and looked around, zeroing in on Jack.
Hey, buddy, I need another number. You got one for me?
Jack smiled. 27.
Really? I was thinking about putting like 35. You know what? I like your face. Let's go with 27.
With that, the man completed his slip and paid for his lottery ticket.
See you, pal.
He's gonna win.
He patted Jack on the shoulder on his way out of the door. Jack tried not to put any more thought into what would happen to this man.
Just let these things play out, Jack. You'll never guess how things end up, so just let yourself be surprised.
The seer had advised him. And still, it was impossible not to wonder about these things from time to time. He knew, considering the way the seer worked, that there was no possible way that he'd actually help this man. But giving him a losing lottery number? That was too simple for the seer. And he couldn't imagine he'd actually given him a winning number.
Yeah, why not?
So that's how Jack was surprised. When 2 weeks later, he ran into the same man again, and this time at the grocery store.
Hey, buddy, it's you. I remember you. Check it out. I won.
Indeed, the man looked like $1 million, wearing new clothes, new gold watch, a big goofy smile. The man walked right up to Jack.
I didn't think I'd ever see you again, but I'm glad you're here. I could have never won without you. Hey, let me buy these groceries for you. No, wait, that's not good enough. You're my goddamn lucky charm. All right, always gotta treat people right. That's what my mom says.
Reaching into his pocket, the man removed his checkbook and promptly wrote Jack a check for $10,000.
It's the least I can do for my good luck charm.
After thanking the man and feeling a bit confused by the whole thing, Jack raced home to his computer. After turning it on, the seer's writing appeared on the screen.
Well, Jack, how does it feel to be $10,000 richer?
Feels good. I can't help but wonder, we've never helped anyone before. Why was I starting now? Jack asked the question with a tinge of guilt. He never liked to admit that people were being hurt by his actions, but in this case, his curiosity overwhelmed any latent feelings of guilt.
Oh, Jack, we haven't helped anyone before. Yeah, that man is happy now, but he'll have lost every last penny within 2 years. You saw it for yourself. He just gives money away. Old friends, old relatives, they're all gonna come asking for money. And there will be some very bad investments as well. The stress of losing everything is going to cause his wife to leave him. She'll take the kids too. And be alone and broke. A ruined man who would have been much better off if he'd never won. You needn't feel bad, Jack. It's the man's own stupidity and greed that will do this to him.
Jack felt some regret, but the seer's rationalizing and focusing on his own reward always put him at peace in the end. Through the years, no two tasks were alike. Sometimes the effect of his actions were direct and easy to see. Other times, they caused a chain reaction so complex, they simply couldn't follow it.
Go to the county administrator's building. Parking space number 43 at 4:47 p.m.
Came one such request. Jack did so, and 2 months later he met Donna, with whom he'd fallen in love and ended up marrying. He wouldn't have even known the two events were even related if he hadn't asked the seer about it.
Jack, when you parked in that space, you caused the person who would have parked there to park in a different space, but she bumped the car next to her. She barely made a scratch, but she called the insurance agency anyway, causing him to leave the office late. He missed his train home, and while waiting for the train, he was mugged and stabbed. He'll never fully recover. The muggers took his credit card and used them. And Jack, I could keep going with this, but there's another 23 people involved. Sometimes these favors are going to be very complicated, but let me just say your actions ultimately caused Donna to be in the exactly right place for you to meet her.
Jack's relationship with the seer grew. Though remaining mostly mysterious, the seer divulged enough information over time so that Jack could get a generalized understanding of the seer's history. From historical references, Jack knew the seer was thousands of years old. When still alive, the seer had been a powerful fortune teller and artist who foretold futures happening through paintings. A foolish king who misinterpreted the seer's predictions and lost a battle as a result had the seer executed. Unencumbered by his physical senses and existing in a lonesome void, the seer's abilities expanded exponentially, finally learning to communicate with the living. The seer began reaching out to those who would respond, including Jack, and of course, the seer knew everything about Jack. In all, it was as much of a relationship as one could have with a dead person. And Jack was grateful to the seer, too. He had a nice job, a nice house, a beautiful wife, and people respected him. He was happy, which is something he never really felt before the seer contacted him. 12 years in total passed. 12 good years for Jack. Task after task was completed, usually about one every month. Jack, sitting in the office of his large rural home, was contacted by the seer once again.
Hi, Jack. I have a favor to ask of you. This one's the easiest one yet. You don't even have to get up. Call Ringo's Pizza in exactly 2 minutes. Let the phone ring 3 times. Then you can hang up.
Jack smiled. Nice and easy. He no longer wondered about how these tasks would play out. He trusted the seer and simply did as he was told. Jack made the call exactly 2 minutes later. The quietness of the household was broken 30 minutes later by the ringing doorbell. That's odd, Jack thought. Neither he nor Donna was expecting anyone. Jack looked out the peephole and saw a pizza delivery boy. The logo on his cap said, Ringo's Pizza. Jack opened the door. "Here's your pizza," said the boy as he thrust it into Jack's hands. But I didn't order this," Jack argued. "Look, I don't give a damn if you ordered it or not. Mr. Ringo told me to bring it here, so it's here. That's what I'm doing." The delivery boy argued as he looked increasingly annoyed and spat in the bushes. Jack looked at the boy in front of him. He looked to be about 17 years old, but the most noticeable thing about him was his size. He was huge, probably about 6.5 feet tall, very muscular. "It's already paid for by credit card. Just take it, because I'm not driving it back." The boy put out his hand for a tip. I don't have any cash on me," Jack told the truth.
"Whatever,"
in the disgusted reply. The boy looked past Jack to the house, then turned and walked slowly to his waiting car, looking over his shoulder as he walked. Jack closed the door and took the pizza to the living room, where Donna was watching TV. After explaining what had happened, he excused himself to go to his office, promising to return shortly. Donna opened the pizza and took a piece. "Come back soon, sweetie. Pizza's got all your favorite toppings on it." Donna giggled as she took a bite. Arriving at his computer, the seer's words appeared on the screen.
"Confused, Jack? Don't be. Your neighbor down the road ordered the pizza. Mr. Ringo told the boy the correct address, but a ringing phone made it difficult for him to hear clearly. Still, give the boy credit. He got the street right at least."
"So, my reward is a pizza?" Jack typed, a little confused.
"Yes, Jack. The reward is a pizza, and also the chance to spend a little time with your wife. Go down there. Share the pizza. Enjoy it. When you're done, make love to Donna. That's not one of your tasks. That's just some advice I think you should follow. Oh, by the way, your neighbors who ordered the pizza are arguing right now over the silly fact that the pizza didn't arrive. Some of the things people argue over amaze me. They really do. Their fight is going to get very heated, but you don't need to worry about that. Go enjoy your night."
Jack followed the seer's advice.
Damn it.
Cuddling with Donna as they enjoyed their meal, then made love to her on their big, comfortable living room couch. Donna fell asleep on the couch shortly after 11 p.m. Jack lay there awake. His latest favor just felt odd. Carefully extracting his arm from under Donna, Jack left the living room and headed upstairs. Sitting down at the computer, Jack typed, "Are you there?"
Yes, Jack, I'm always here. I've been waiting for you to come back. That pizza delivery boy, he's quite a specimen, isn't he?
Jack looked quizzically at the screen. The seer continued.
He's a horrible employee. Was hired only 3 days ago, and already Mr. Rinko wants to fire him. But as a physical specimen, he's strong, fast, very observant. For example, he noticed that you didn't lock the front door after he delivered your pizza.
"What?" Jack said aloud as he started to get up.
Sit down, Jack. I need to tell you something important, and locking the door now won't change your situation.
Jack slowly took his seat again at the computer, looking behind himself as he did so.
You see, Jack, it's true that I never lied to you. Everything I told you is 100% honest, but yes, I withhold certain facts from you. You see, I told you that every task causes something bad to happen to someone else and something good to happen to you, but here's the third thing. There's an ultimate goal that each task is working toward. Remember Allie? Of course you do. What you probably don't remember about her is that she was helping to pay her brother's way through college. When she died, he had to drop out. He was going to be a great psychologist, but now he works in a factory instead. We're really too bad for our pizza delivery boy. He could have used a good therapist a few years ago, but that good therapist wasn't there for him. Instead, he got some Freudian quack. And remember our lottery winner? Yeah, you do. He was a neighbor to our pizza boy. After he lost all of his money, of course, he beat the boy senseless after the boy jumped into the street in front of his car. Quite a traumatic memory for our young lad. And his mother? Oh, didn't care about that incident. Didn't protect the boy at all. She couldn't. Not after using all the drugs given to her by her boyfriend, who happened to be one of the muggers who robbed the insurance agent. He bought the drugs with the money he made from the robbery. Do you see now the scope of my artistry?
Jack sat, glaring at the monitor. He wanted to get up to check Donna, but he was too scared to move. The seer continued.
Jack, you've done over 100 tasks for me, and each one has served an ultimate purpose: to psychologically destroy this boy, turn him into a monster, bring him here tonight. Don't you see, Jack? This involved tens of thousands of people and billions of possibilities. If you had failed to complete even one of the tasks, the whole chain would have collapsed. This is orchestrated by me, set in motion by you. Together we've done something wonderful. This is a masterpiece of human manipulation. Our masterpiece. And it all begins and ends with you, 2 perfect points in time. Tonight. Wrong address. No tip. This poor boy finally snapped. He's downstairs right now. He's slitting Donna's throat at this exact moment.
Jack could hear a short, muffled scream coming from the living room, followed by a gurgling noise. Jack screamed and stood up, starting to run downstairs. "Jack, stop!" The voice startled Jack. It was inside his head. For the first time, the seer was talking to him directly. It was a pleasant voice. A feminine voice. "You can't do anything. She's already gone. He'll be coming for you shortly, and you can't stop him." "But why?" Jack cried, with tears welling up in his eyes. "It's not an artistic masterpiece if it doesn't begin and end with you, Jack." Her voice was soothing. "I want you to appreciate the fact that I'm talking to you directly. This requires all of my energy, and as a result, I'll have to rest for several years before I can contact anyone again. That's how special you are to me. Please don't feel bad about this, Jack. I want you to take a moment and enjoy our accomplishment as I do."
What the hell?
You know what, Jack? If I never contacted you, you would have lived for 85 years. 85 boring, meaningless, and bitter years, and when you died, nobody would have been at your funeral. I gave you 12 great, meaningful years. We were happy, and together, we did something beautiful, something unique. Jack paused for a moment and considered his 12 years of happiness and his tears of sorrow mixed with his tears of joy. He turned and looked at the computer while behind him the massive hulk of the demented delivery boy appeared in the doorway, a bloody knife in his left hand. On the screen, the last words from the seer appeared.
Don't you have something to say to me, Jack?
Jack wiped his tears and absorbed everything the seer had just told him. As the Hulk started stepping toward him, Jack mouthed his final words. Thank you.
Well, that's morbid.
September 4th, 2005. Patient name, James Green. Age, 37. Weight, 164 pounds. Room of keeping, 3.
The Asylum of Slender Man.
Reason, hallucinations. Self-aggravation, thoughts of suicide. September 5th, 2005. Subject is showing no thoughts of suicide when being overviewed on camera or when there is a security officer in the room. Talks to himself every now and then saying he comes. He doesn't know what he means by this, but we figure it's just a nightmare that he has sometimes. He tells us that he's being watched by some man with long arms, legs twisted in an unnatural way, and he describes the man as a tall man wearing a nice suit with black tie, white shirt under. He says that the man has no facial features. He says that he has some sort of tendrils coming from his back. This unnerved me when he told us this, but I figure since he's on medication, it's just the symptoms talking. October 1st. We're currently putting the subject on therapy because the medication is not helping him. Last night we could hear screams coming from his cell, growling noises followed by the screaming, but that wasn't the scariest part of the night. He reported the same man he described last month, but this time, the man was in his cell, touching him, throwing him around the room like some sort of rag doll. Of course, we didn't believe him until we saw that mark on his back. It was a black mark stretched all over his back, and we asked him what the hell was going on last night. But there was no answer from him. He just kept muttering words. Man. Slen man. October 2nd, 2005. The subject has escaped. Somehow he got out of his cell in the middle of the night and ran over to the houses in the city. We hoped that he didn't get too far and sent a couple of police officers with 3 police dogs to search for him. We searched for some clues on how he could have escaped, and what we found was unnerving, heart-tearing. The door to his cell was thrown across the room. The room was covered in blood and some strange markings on the ceiling. October 16th, 2005. Today, the bodies of the 2 police officers we sent out the other day were found in an alleyway. One with dog mutilated. With one dog mutilated, and a videotape was found by one of the officers. That's what we found.
Subject is running down the alleyway. We're running towards him.
Okay, we're in the alleyway. Calling for backup. What the fuck was that?
Hey, what's your language?
Yes, ma'am.
Watch your language?
Shoot the damn thing, Johnson.
Holy shit. That time.
Fuck, holy shit, shoot it, shoot it!
Holy shit, I'm out of ammo.
Shit, Johnson, watch out behind
Fuck
you!
this, call for backup.
Slender Man.
October 17th, 2005. To this day, we don't know what happened to the subject that escaped the asylum. And to this day, we don't know what attacked the 2 officers. We're still looking for information on this Slender Man.
Oh my gosh. You look at the top right here. This story is quite long, but it's
My best friend is
so good. It's super good.
started out very small, but he's quickly grown out of control. I'm currently sitting inside a church, using their Wi-Fi to post a story and taking advantage of their air conditioning. I'm posting this story in case he finds me and kills me soon. It's only a matter of time now, and I want someone to know what happened before I die. 2 years ago, my friend David and I were sitting on the couch at my house, thoroughly bored. It wasn't a temporary boredom either. It was a resounding boredom with life. We both worked full-time at the local movie theater, making minimum wage and cleaning up after idiots who couldn't keep popcorn and soda in their mouths. We had graduated high school 2 years prior and had no plans to attend college. Life looked bleak for us. College didn't sound appealing, work was annoying, and the little free time we had was blown on video games and YouTube. We both still lived with our parents too, which made dating somewhat embarrassing. Looking back, I'm sure we were suffering from mild depression on top of everything else. These life circumstances blended together to create the perfect storm of what I now have to call my reality. As we sat on the couch at my parents' house, channel surfing the TV, David asked if I was bored with life. I responded in a positive, and he sighed. High school was so easy because we knew our purpose and our goals were set for us. Outline the English essay, finish the math homework, get decent grades, pass the driving exam, be home by curfew, find a girlfriend. Now that we're out of high school, there's no structure. Our lives have become meaningless, and we're just floating through space with no aim or purpose. Would you go back to high school then? I asked. He shook his head. In that moment, high school was annoying. It's only after looking back that I see how much better it was than I realized. What's the solution then? I asked. Either go somewhere that has structure and can deliver what high school gave us, or create our own structure, David replied. Well, I don't want to go to college, or the military, I said, and I can't think of anything else that provides the same structure.
Yeah, I feel like I need that.
Where to start? Well, that's the thing about high school.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
If you didn't give that minimum effort, you won't face the consequences. The consequences were bad enough that you and I would put effort into school. When high school ended, the minimum effort level decreased. Now our minimum effort is not enough to improve ourselves. Whatever structure we built has to have those consequences built in, and a minimum effort that forces us to improve constantly. David was, and is, a very intelligent person. He thinks about everything. You can't already tell. I was pretty dumb compared to him, but I stuck around because he always had interesting things to say. This conversation definitely counted as interesting. I won't bore you with the entire conversation that we had, but it lasted an hour where we discussed how to build structure in our lives. I want to emphasize here that boredom
is dangerous. It's not dangerous by itself, but it can quickly lead to dangerous things. Boredom can lead to pain, accidental children, technology that disrupts a monopoly, even death. Our boredom led to a dare. I dare you to try to ruin my life, David said. What does that mean? I said, it's a way to build structure into my life. If I know that you're always trying to ruin my life and actively trying to make me fail, then I'm driven to fight back and act on initiative. But how could I ruin your life? I asked. You can ruin anyone's life if you give enough thought, planning, and action, David said with a smirk. I'm not going to give you any ideas. I just want you to try to ruin my life. I remember sitting back and thinking about what he meant. The first thoughts that came to my mind were about tripping him occasionally or hiding his toothbrush every time I went to his house. My young mind didn't fully understand how serious David was being. His mind was running 3 tracks above mine. So I didn't know what I was getting into when I said, okay, I'll try to ruin your life. But I dare you to try and ruin my life as well. He smiled.
That was stupid.
And I smiled back. I had hoped it would be a great way to relieve my boredom with life. David stood up and punched me in the leg as hard as he could. I shouted at him, mostly out of surprise. He laughed. The dare starts now, he said, grabbing his shoes. We're no longer friends. We're nemesis. He opened my front door and looked over his shoulder. Good luck, he said. I hope you'll work half as hard as I will. Once he left, I just sat there rubbing my sore thigh. Okay, I thought. He wants a war.
Holy moly.
He'll get a war. That night,
We're getting
I
there.
laid awake trying to think of ways to make his life harder for him. My ideas were also childish and useless compared to what he would later throw at me. I'm too embarrassed to list my ideas from back then. I wish I could say I remembered the day David turned against me for real, but it was so subtle that I didn't notice right away. To my face, David acted completely normal. While we were at work, I would sprinkle popcorn over a section that he had just cleaned, and point it out to him. He would just laugh and say, "Is that really supposed to ruin my life?" Then he would clean it up. I expected him to do the same to me, but he didn't. His lack of visible retaliation made me bored again, so I stopped. Looking back, I suspect that behind my back he was sabotaging my image with our other coworkers and our boss. Out of the blue, my boss called me into his office and told me that I was fired because I wasn't doing a good enough job. David acted sorry I was leaving, and we promised to hang out again soon. I left, thinking I could make this something good and get a real job. That dream died. And I ended up at McDonald's instead. After I'd been at McDonald's for a month or so, my parents confronted me. They asked me if I had been stealing cash from their wallets. I had never stolen a cent from them, and told them so. They backed off, but only for a week until my mom's debit card went missing. They confronted me again, this time very angry. They accused me of withdrawing several $100s using my mom's debit card. I have no siblings, so it wouldn't have been anyone else in the house. It turned into a screaming match, and they demanded that I move out as quickly as possible. With my small cash of savings, I found an apartment near the local community college that housed college students. The rent was affordable enough for me, so I moved out within the month. I moved in and became instant friends with 2 of my roommates, Clark and Ivan. Our other roommate, Isaac, kept to himself and stayed in his room playing video games 24/7. Life got good again because I hung out with Clark and Ivan frequently. David and I had stopped hanging out after I was fired from the movie theater. I hadn't forgot about him, but I had forgotten about the dare. Every once in a while, I would message him on Facebook or shoot him a text to ask if he wanted to hang out, but my messages were always ignored. Eventually, I gave up. Within 6 months, I had a great life going. I was dating a girl named Katie. I had been promoted to crew trainer at McDonald's, which paid better, and my bank account was slowly growing. I only recognized this as David's doing when I look back, but an obscene amount of junk mail showed up with my name on it every single day. Magazines, credit card offers, vacation ads, and even physical letters from real people who claimed to be excited to be my new pen pal. I sorted through them every day trying to find some pattern. Clark and Ivan thought it was hilarious. When I came home late from work, they would sometimes toss the junk mail in the air like confetti as I walked through the door, cheering that the mail king was home. One day I remembered feeling sick of getting all this junk mail, and decided to sit down, call every subscription to cancel. I recruited Clark and Ivan to help me, and we sat down with snacks one afternoon and started to crank through phone calls. In a few days, the tide of junk mail subsided, and we celebrated our efforts. That only lasted a week. The next week, it started coming back in full force. There was twice as much as before, and even some pornographic magazines in the mix. Not only did my physical junk mail increase, but my email became unnavigatable through all the new spam messages. Google moved a lot of it to the spam filter, but there was still hundreds of emails that made it through. My email had been subscribed to websites I'd never even heard of. Clark and Ivan were blown away by the new tide of junk mail. The event was dubbed Return of the Junk, and became a great icebreaker for Clark and Ivan to introduce me to other people at parties. One day, I was browsing Facebook's People You May Know section when I came across someone's profile that had my picture, but a different name. The account was open for anyone to view and had lots of porn posts, status updates full of swearing and praises to Hitler. I frowned when I clicked on their pictures. Most of the pictures were the same ones from my Facebook account, but there were some pictures of me that weren't on my account or anywhere else online. Keep in mind, I didn't remember my dare to David, so I was feeling pretty creeped out. I hit the report button and let Facebook know the account was a fake and went on my way. I think 3 months or so later was when more stuff started to happen. Katie and I were getting very serious and discussing moving in together. The junk mail still rolled in and I was starting to just throw it away. Ivan had moved out to go to an actual university, so a new roommate, Jackson, had moved in. Clark and I attempted to befriend Jackson, but he's similar to Isaac and locked himself in his room most of the time. A new game became available for pre-order, so I submitted my email to reserve a copy. When I tried to log into my email to make sure the reserved copy was there, I couldn't log in. I hit forgot password, and it asked if I wanted to use my phone number to reset the password. I pressed yes, and waited for my phone to light up. It never did. I pressed the button 3 more times, but no text ever came. I tried old passwords I used to use, but none of them worked. I frowned, but eventually just walked away from my computer. I'd try again a different day. I sat down on the couch and pulled up Facebook on my phone. A pop-up appeared. "You've been signed out," it said. Then it jumped to the login screen. I thought I hit the logout button on accident, so I just typed my email and password. It didn't work. I tried again, but it still told me the password was incorrect. My phone buzzed in my hand. Katie was calling me. I answered it and immediately became concerned. She was sobbing. "Katie?" I asked. "You coward," she spat. You don't get to just Facebook me that shit. No, you have to talk to me and tell me with your voice." "Katie, what are you talking about?" I asked. "Don't play stupid, asshole. Say it." "Say what?" "You Facebook me and say that we're through, but when I call, you deny everything? What the hell are you trying to pull, Xander?" Katie hissed. "Katie, my Facebook got hacked. I was literally just trying to log in when you called. Are you at home? I'm coming over. We're not done. We're far from done, sweetheart." It took me some time to convince Katie that it hadn't been me, but she relented when I showed her that I couldn't log in. I Googled how to get my Facebook account back and contacted their help center. Thankfully, they were able to get me back into my account. Lots of links to porn sites have been posted all over my page by whoever jacked my account, so I spent time deleting all of those. I also spent time answering family members who asked me about the strange content that had been posted. Awkward. Katie also found out through my feeds that my Twitter and Instagram had also been hacked. The accounts were posting hundreds of crude messages and pictures, and those 2 sites took a little more effort, but eventually I regained control over those too.
But Instagram, well, maybe Instagram and Facebook weren't together at that time.
Not wanting to repeat the experience,
They've been together for a while, so
strings of numbers, letters, and symbols.
I don't know. I know this story's a little bit old.
Anyone who had done this, you know how impossible it would be to memorize your passwords. I wrote them down on a sheet of paper and put it in my dresser drawer. I didn't intend to get hacked again. I'm telling you where I put the paper, so you'll know how freaked out I was when Facebook signed me out again the next week. I checked my other accounts, locked out again. I shot Katie a text to warn her, then called Facebook Help Center again. They gave me access to Facebook and gave me the same warning about making a long password. When I told them the type of precautions that I had taken last time, they suggested checking my computer for viruses in case there was a keylogger connecting all the information I typed. I called the computer repair center to ask what I needed to do to get my computer scanned. They asked me to bring it down and they'd check it out. I had a desktop, so bringing it down required a lot of unplugging. When I got down behind the computer to unplug everything, I found a tiny USB stick that I'd never seen before.
I frowned and tried to locate its content on the computer. The computer said no USB was attached. The computer repair guy confirmed the USB drive was a keylogger. He asked if my computer had ever been anywhere that anyone could walk up and use it. I told him no, and he said he had no idea how it could have gotten there. He didn't charge me anything, just warned me to keep an eye on my computer. I changed all my passwords again, going through the motions to get my accounts back. A few days later, I received three credit card bills in the mail. I still have the habit of skimming through the junk mail in case there ever was anything super important. I'm glad I did because I might never have found out about the credit cards that were registered in my name. I called the credit card companies to inform them that they were mistaken. I had never signed up for a credit card. My parents had warned me about them, so often I'd been deterred from ever getting one. Before you comment and tell me I need them to build my credit, yes, I know that now. A quick Google search told me what to do next. I called Equifax, which is a company that calculates your credit score and tells creditors that it's okay for you to open an account. I placed a 90-day fraud alert on my account. They said they would call me if anyone tried to open a credit account in my name. The dude at Equifax was kind enough to tell me what I needed to do next. He asked me to go online and view my credit report. If I saw my accounts I didn't recognize, I would write them down and fill out a complaint to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, explaining the situation. Once I had that submitted, I was to file a copy of it with the police and create a police report. Then, I had to take those 2 reports and call each of the credit companies that had issued credit to my identity and start the dispute process. I instantly felt very discouraged at the amount of effort that it would require. I felt utterly insane to be required to follow all these steps just because I was the victim of identity theft. God damn. Clark was horrified at what had happened. I looked at his credit score. He was relieved when it came back clean. I made Katie check hers just in case, too. Also clean. Actually, I'll take a moment to tell everyone listening that you are entitled, by law, to 1 free credit report per year from each of the 3 credit score companies. That means you can and should check your credit 3 times a year. Clark and I set reminders on our phones to check the score again in 4 months. I asked Katie to do the same. When I first found out about the accounts, I had called my parents to ask if they had opened any accounts in my name. If they had, I'd know who the culprit was. They told me they hadn't opened any accounts, and I warned them about my problems. They promised to check their credit scores. 2 weeks after I had called them, my dad called. They found 15 fraudulent accounts between the 2 of them. What the hell? I told him the steps he needed to take, and he was grateful for my help and warning. Look, I know this is boring to hear, but I want you to realize how insanely painful it is to fix all this shit. I mean, seriously, watch your credit reports and nip identity theft in the bud before it happens to you. I requested detailed bills from my credit card companies that had issued the fraudulent accounts, and they mailed them to me. The bills were full of online purchases. The accounts had been opened almost a year ago, and in that time, the thief had spent $62,000 between all the fraudulent accounts. I was pretty upset. In a full year, I had only just found any credit card bills in the mail. I must have been tossing them with the mountains of junk mail. Now I know that the masses of junk mail were deliberate and calculated, so the bills would blend in and hopefully get thrown away. The first few transactions were from stores like Target, Walmart, etc. But further down I went, the less I recognized. One word stuck out to me. Bitcoin. I had learned a little bit about it from my Facebook feed, as I had some friends from high school who touted it as new real currency. According to the credit card statement, several $1,000s had been exchanged into Bitcoin. I started really researching Bitcoin and trying to figure out what it was and why an identity thief would want it. To make the explanation short, Bitcoin allowed my thief to make completely anonymous purchases online. It was as if he'd gone to an ATM, drained all the credit cards into cash. I didn't foresee the credit card companies ever getting their money back. David now had a hell of a lot of cash that he could use to ruin my life. I didn't know it was him at the time, obviously, but now I do. Guys, identity theft is a serious crime and very damaging to someone in the economy. And while the theft had been bad, my life was about to get a whole lot worse. That's all I have time to say for now. I have to go and get some serious shit taken care of. I'll be back again as soon as I can. My name is Xander, and my best friend is trying to ruin my life. While I was still trying to resolve the credit disputes with the other companies, my car's windows started getting smashed.
The first time, it was parked on the street in front of my apartment. I woke up one morning to find the driver's window smashed and my car raided. My car was just a crappy Honda Civic, and I didn't even keep anything expensive in there, but they snatched my stereo, which was shitty anyway, and all the spare change in the car. I got my window repaired that day and decided to set aside some cash to buy a really nice stereo now that I had an excuse. The next morning, the same window was smashed again. Again, I had parked it in front of my apartment. I got that repaired reluctantly and started parking in the underground parking for the apartment complex. See, no one likes the underground parking because the lines are painted too close, so it's not uncommon for your car to get scratched up down there. I decided it was better than a smashed window, so I fought for a spot that evening. I know you're going to ask why I didn't call the police. Mistakes, that's why. We all make them. You have the wisdom that comes with knowing the whole story. Well, I didn't. Glass was all over and around my car when I went down the next morning. It wasn't just the driver's window that was damaged. The front windshield, the back windshield were deeply cracked. I spent some time looking at every car in the garage. No one else had so much as a scratch on their windows. What the hell? If some random asshole was out breaking windows, he was targeting me. I'd noticed the note after I'd gotten into the car. It was a sticky note folded up and slipped into the ignition keyhole. I opened it. You have to increase your minimum required effort, it said. The phrasing was intentional. David wanted me to know it was him. When I saw the phrase, I remembered our conversation. That fucker. I went into a total rage and drove out of the parking lot, trying my best to drive with a cracked windshield. I still remembered how to get to David's house, and I ran a red light or two to get there. Parking in front of his house, I slammed the door shut, marched over to the front door, and I held the doorbell for much longer than necessary. I tried to breathe and remain calm. David won't help me if I show up shouting and yelling.
Not going to help you anyway.
After a few minutes, David's parents had held off on having a child until they were much older. As a result, David's mom was already 75, even though David was only 23. Hello, she said, opening the door. Then she saw who it was. Oh, Xander, how nice for you to come over. I haven't seen you in weeks. Yeah, it's been... What? It's almost been a year. Miss K, is David home? No, dear, he's at work right now. Oh. Okay, I'll go and I'll catch him at the theater, I said, backpedaling towards my car. No, he doesn't work there anymore. He got fired? I asked. No, he quit. Not long after you did, he became a security guard somewhere. He never mentioned where. I'll call him then, I said. He dropped his phone a few weeks ago and got a new one, she said. Let me give you the new number. She walked back inside for a minute, and I waited on the porch. She came back with her old flip phone and opened it. Do you mind? She asked. My arthritis makes it hard to use this phone. I went to her contacts, found David's number, entered it into mine, and handed her the phone back. Thanks, Mrs. K.
Oh, boy. All right.
David was being an asshole.
Got a little bit. Well, we got a little while still.
Closed the door. I called David immediately, but only got a voicemail. Hi, David, it's Xander. I just spoke with your mom, and she didn't know where you were, so she gave me your number. Please call me, man. I think you know why, I said to his voicemail. I figured that being polite was the best way to get him to fix everything. In the middle of work that day, my phone buzzed. Hoping it was David, I stepped outside and answered it. It was Clark.
Have you been home today since you left?
No, why?
We've been robbed.
What?
Someone broke in and stole a ton of stuff. Your computer's missing, our TV is gone, all kinds of shit.
Holy shit. I said, did you call the police?
Yeah, they're on their way.
Don't touch anything, okay? I suggested, remembering all the episodes of CSI that I'd binged on. We might be able to get fingerprints. I think I know who it is.
Who?
An ex-friend. I'll tell you when I get home. I'm leaving soon. I told the manager that my apartment had been broken into, and he let me go. I drove with my still broken windshield, praying I didn't get pulled over for it. When I got to the apartment, the police were already there. I walked to the landing where a cop was interviewing Clark, and another was looking through the apartment. The cop turned to face me. You one of the roommates? He asked. This is Xander, Clark said. My partner's looking through the apartment now. A tech is going to come out and dust for prints. We're going to need you to make an inventory of everything that's been stolen and bring it to the station once the tech is done. Oh, well, I have a suspect, I said. Cop raised his eyebrows. His name is David King. He used to be a really good friend of mine, but recently I've suspected that he's been doing all kinds of shit to me. I think he's stolen my identity and my parents' identity, damaged my vehicle, and now broken into my house. Clark shot me a questioning look. Why do you think he's doing all this? The officer asked. I found this in my car's ignition this morning, with the window smashed, I said, handing him the folded sticky note out of my pocket. Why do you think he wrote this? You know, we had a conversation about a year ago when we were talking about this minimum requirements for success and how school made our lives easier because it had consequences if we didn't make a minimum effort, I explained. It looked like the idea went right over the cop's head. Well, we'll test this for prints too, he said, pulling an evidence bag from his belt and putting the note inside. Come down to the station with your inventory and be ready to make a formal statement about your friend. I agreed to do so. At that moment, the partner came outside with nothing to report. The tech arrived and started dusting. We waited patiently, eager to see what was missing. You should really lock your bedroom doors, the partner said. 2 of your roommates' doors are locked, so I doubt anything was stolen from them. You should make sure they check their rooms for anything that's missing when they get home. We agreed to ask them. The tech finished up and told us that we'd know in a few days what prints he was able to find. The house seemed bare. Only the largest couch out of the 3 was left in the living room. The TV, which had been a 65-inch plasma, was gone. Food was missing from the pantry, and even the contents of the fridge was dumped on the floor. Silverware was scattered around the kitchen floor and counters. Where the hell is Isaac and Jackson? Clark yelled angrily. They're always home. Call them. I don't have their numbers, Clark replied. Well, neither do I said, walking to my bedroom. It was stripped bare of anything worthwhile. My computer, mouse, keyboard, computer chair, boxes of random knickknacks, and bicycle were all missing. My dresser drawers were laying everywhere, my closet was clearly raided, and my bed covers had been tossed around the room. I heard bouts of loud cursing from Clark as he inspected his room. He took my goddamn Xbox, that son of a bitch! Feeling shocked, defeated, and numb, I sat on the bed. I called Katie to tell her what had happened. No answer. I shot her a text. My house got robbed. And stared at the wall for a while thinking. David King had been in my house. He'd stolen my identity, my public image, and now my things. It was time to step up my game. No, not my game. My life. Time to stop floating through life and start beating the minimum required effort. During the rest of that day, we learned a lot about plumbing. David had loosened every pipe that he could find in the house. Mark made the discovery when our toilet unleashed a tsunami when he flushed. We spent hours cleaning that up. To fix all the pipes, we had to go out and buy tools because neither of us had any at the house. When my card was declined, Clark stepped in and paid. My declined card worried me. Clark and I went to the library, and I tried to log in my other banking site, locked out. I didn't even bother retrying my password. We raced to the bank before they closed, and I breathlessly approached the teller. I need to freeze my account, I breathed. What's your account number? The teller, apparently named Chantel, asked. I told her my account number from memory. She opened it up on her computer. Driver's license, please.
God damn it.
Card. She typed in my driver's license into her computer and verified my identity. They handed it back to me. Looks like your account is at 0, she said. You can only freeze the account if there's money. I've been robbed, I shouted, feeling extremely angry now. You moved all of your money to your debit card via our online app, then withdrew it all in cash from an ATM this afternoon. No, that wasn't me, I said. I've been hacked. If you'd like to report a fraudulent transaction, I can fill that out for you right here. Yes, fine, do it, I said abruptly. Clark watched me with worry from a chair by the door. When did you start to notice the fraudulent activity? She asked. Today, but it could have started any time over the last year, I replied. She raised her eyebrows in a way she thought that I couldn't see, and started typing. After a few minutes, she looked up at me. Okay, I've filled out the report and submitted it. You should hear back from our fraud department soon. What about the ATM cameras? I asked.
I don't have access to those. You'll have to file a police report, she said. Okay, I'll do that. Then Clark and I went to the car and drove to the apartment. We would have gone to the police department right away, but the apartment was still flooding in places. We spent a few hours finding leaky pipes and tightening them. It took hours because we looked everything up before we did it to be sure that we were doing it right. Clark inspected the pipes under the kitchen sink while I sat at the table and started my inventory for the police. It was already 9 p.m., so we were going to take it in the morning. Our local station wasn't open 24 hours a day. We had knocked on Jackson and...
Whew, all right.
No answer.
We're getting there.
Either they weren't home, or they were ignoring us. Well, I'm really sorry about this fraud going on, Clark said as he tightened the pipe. You said you think you know who it is? Who's David King? David used to be a friend about a year ago, I said. I told him about the dares and the conversation that led up to it. You dared each other to ruin each other's lives, and then he took it more than seriously? Clark asked, incredulous. Apparently, I sighed. So you're not going to hold up to your end of the deal? Clark said. My end? He dared you first, man, and you haven't even tried. Well, no, I guess not. Then let's think of something to really destroy his life. Clark pulled himself from under the sink and washed the grease off his hands. The prison would do it, I suggested. If I can nail him for the identity theft, that'll solve the problem. True, Clark said, but we need to show him that you aren't going to just lay down and take it. I have an idea. Not going to ruin his life, but it'll make him realize that you're going to fight back. Clark took his car to Home Depot. We bought 2 cans of black spray paint, and Clark paid in cash. Okay. Where does this dumbass live? Clark asked when we were back in the car. Clark, his mom is great. I don't think I can spray her house. His mom? Clark laughed hysterically. Some guy that still lives with his mom is terrorizing you? Okay, Jesus, I said. I gave him the address and he took off. We drove past the house to see if any lights were on. It was dark. Even the porch lights were off. We parked 3 blocks away from the house and started walking. What's the plan? Spray thief on front of the house, Clark whispered with a smile. That ought to get the neighbors talking. When we were next to the neighbor's house, we ducked behind a fence and surveyed the neighborhood. All was quiet. No movement, no noise, no people. We stayed low and silently dashed to the front of the house. I sprayed the F. Clark sprayed the T. We worked towards each other. It barely took 3 seconds. We stepped back for half a second and examined the handiwork. The letters were 3 feet tall, easily visible from the road. We turned and started to run towards the car. Then the door to the house opened. I glanced over my shoulder. David fucking King. Oh, shit, I hissed. Clark heard me as we sprinted full on towards the car. David tore down the sidewalk after us. Clark looked behind us as well. God, oh God, oh God, Clark chanted with each step. He actually looked worried. As we approached the car, Clark had a realization. Just keep going, he tried to whisper, even though he was out of breath. I locked the door. It'll take too long to unlock. And he'll know my license plate. Clark didn't have automatic locks. He had to use the key manually. I agreed with his logic, and we ran past the car as if it were just another vehicle. I looked back, and David was gaining on us. It was too dark to see his expression. Hell, I didn't even know if he recognized me. Split up, I cried, turning right into someone's front yard. Clark kept going straight. When I reached the white plastic fence that led along the back of their property, I glanced backwards. David had followed me and ignored Clark. I scrambled up the slippery fence and dropped to the other side. I had landed in someone else's backyard. I started running toward their front yard. A motion detecting light on the wall went off behind me, blinding me. I looked behind me again to watch David scale the fence in half a second. When the hell had he learned to do that? I rounded the corner of the house and smashed into a patio table and chairs. The chairs clattered down, and the table...
Something about the audio in this, he's got like the effect of it being like on a radio or something, and it's bugging the hell out of me.
My face against the edge of the table.
Hello, Xander. Out for a walk? Fuck you. I spat, my cheek jammed up against the table's edge. Why so hostile? You know why, jackass?
Not so loud. We're having a nice, quiet conversation.
I struggled to push my head off the table, but he was so much stronger than me.
Stop struggling and listen.
I want to clarify the rules of the game since you finally caught on we're still playing. This isn't a game. You ruined my credit, stole my money, hacked my accounts, and stole my shit. I'm gonna kill you.
But I'm not gonna kill you. That's the rule.
I will not kill you, Xander. That would put an end to your ruined life, and that's not the goal, no. Now, you haven't put any effort into ruining my life. Why not? Because I'm not a sick psychopath, I hissed. Clearly not, he said coolly. But this is boring for me. I'm doing all the work making you fight for life, while you're doing nothing to improve me. Not that I haven't learned anything. But it'd be more fun if you'd fight back. I'll even let Clark help you, but I think you need motivation. You think I need motivation to hurt you? As if. Yes, you do need it. Because despite everything that's happened to you, your only attempt to fight back was pathetic. I need you to up your game and fight harder. So that's where some motivation kicks in. Healy reached his left hand into his pocket and pulled out a smartphone. He tapped on it a few times before holding it up to his ear. "It's me," he said when the other line picked up. "Put her on." Then he held the phone to my ear. Someone was crying.
Say hello.
The gruff voice said.
Why? God damn it. Why?
Katie.
There we go.
Jesus Christ, he kidnapped Katie. You motherfucker, I yelled. Ease on the language, Xander. David smiled, talking as if he had asked me to eat my vegetables. Katie, where are you? I said desperately into the phone. David took the phone away and hung up, sticking it into his back pocket.
You understand the rules now, Xander. Are you motivated?
I'm gonna kill you, you son of a bitch. You'll burn in hell. Now.
This isn't a theoretical discussion, David tutted.
You and Clark do your best to ruin my life. Do whatever you want, but if you kill me, I kill Katie. Can't kill her if you're dead, I growled. No, my friend will. It's amazing the kind of people you can meet online. He's just as excited to play as I am. Do you have any questions before the game really starts? What the hell happened to you? We were best friends.
Things change,
He said. I've been dreaming of this game for years now. You were my only real friend that I could do this with. One day, I decided to just go for it.
You've ruined your own life by trying to ruin mine.
Once you're convicted of identity theft and kidnapping, your life is over. Now that's part of the game. Can't ruin me if you can't convict me. I've been preparing for years. He grinned. His eyes were dark and menacing. Don't you think that's unfair to me? How am I supposed to put in a good effort if you've been preparing for years?
I'll consider giving you some advice,
He admitted, looking thoughtful.
In the meantime,
Do your best. And tell Clark to play along because I'll have some motivation for him too. The sound of scrambling on the back fence alerted us to someone's presence. I shouted for help and David slapped me, but lightly. I tried to see who it was from my limited movement. Clark's face appeared over the fence.
that's my cue to leave.
David said with a smile.
It's been good catching up with you, Xander.
Clark shot across the yard, yelling for David to piss off. David just stood there, looking at me and waiting. That's when Clark caught up and punched him square in the face. David flew to the ground and released my head. I stood up and rubbed my sore face. David started to get up, but Clark kicked him in the side. "Stay down," he said. A light went on in the house behind us. We both turned to look. I had the thought to hold David here until the police arrived. When we turned back around, David was halfway down the street. Clark started to take off, but I grabbed his arm. "Stop. Let him go," I said in defeat. "I have something to tell you." We made a quiet decision to avoid the cops tonight. We wanted to file a report with them on our terms. not having to explain what we were doing trespassing in the middle of the night. We jogged back to his car and went home. We sat on the living room couch as I told Clark about David's conversation. Clark was staring dumbfounded at me. I thought you said he used to be a friend. He did. And he never acted like this? No. Well, not to me. This is insane, Clark said, standing up from the couch. He's kidnapped Katie just so that you'll try to ruin his life and follow along with some stupid dare? Is he crazy? He's going to be caught. Let's hope so, I said. But we should start planning. I'm not taking any chances while he has Katie. Okay, man. I have nothing to do with this at all, but I also want to help you. If it was anyone else, I'd nope the fuck out. Let's get started. I don't know how much detail I want to put in here, because it'll likely get slow and boring for you. We stayed up all night, mapping out events, people, weaknesses, strengths, everything that we could think of. We filled half a notebook with all our notes. These were the
Holy fucking moly.
we could potentially use against David. Boredom with life, so we could make the game too boring to continue. His mom, if she knew what was going on, she might be able to get him to stop. I know some of you commented that we should kidnap Miss K and use her, but we were still very green and had no desire to do that kind of shit to David. Work? We get him fired, make sure no one would hire him again. Online accounts do the same thing that he'd been doing to me. Police, if we could come up with hard evidence to get him convicted, the problem would be solved. Katie. Since he had kidnapped Katie, the police would definitely get involved. I could easily report my suspicions about David, and they'd search him for the tiniest bits of evidence. Then we looked at the strengths and things to look out for. He was prepared. He obviously had a timeline he had been following and knew what he was doing. Time, junk mail, credit card incidents, these had all been done before I felt the effects. And this meant that there could be other traps that David had set up that would go off like a time bomb. Physical body, clear that for tonight, he'd been working out a ton and practicing and probably training for his job as a security guard. Money. He had lots of money from all those fraud charges that I and my parents had received. Friends? If he had a friend who was willing to get involved in a kidnapping, then there'd be 2 or possibly more psychopaths to worry about now. Knowledge. He knew how to use fraud without being caught yet, and hack computers, or at least
Oh my gosh.
someone to do it for him. We had no idea what other dangerous knowledge he might have, so we made a list of things that he could know that we should learn how to counter. I won't list it here because it'd be pretty long. Willingness to break the law. It was clear that the law was not part of the rules of the game for him. He was either unafraid to be caught or confident that he never would be. After we looked at David, we looked at ourselves. First, our weaknesses, knowledge. We didn't have nearly the amount of knowledge that David had. Not just knowledge about how to do things like fix a pipe, but also knowledge about David, who his friends were, where he worked, who he talked to, etc. We'd have to start learning like crazy to try to catch up. Money, we had no money left. Clark was limited because he just spent a ton on a plasma TV that was just stolen. Our home and car, David knew where we lived. We planned to sell our lease as soon as possible. He also knew our cars, but there was nothing we could do about that. So we moved and had some money to buy a junker car we'd used when it was necessary. And no matter where we lived, if he could find our car, he knew how to follow us home. And there was Katie. David decided to change the rules and use Katie as motivation. We might have to rethink literally everything. It was fear. Clark and I knew that deep down David terrified us more than he angered us. I would rather have walked away than exact revenge. We were all afraid and unwilling to do a lot of things David had already done. here are our strengths. The law was on our side so long as we kept things legal. Clark's credit so far, David hadn't targeted Clark like he targeted me, so we could take precautionary measures to protect him. Our jobs, we had jobs. We could therefore earn money, unless David found a way to get us fired from them. We needed to come up with a way to protect our jobs from David, that's true. The FTC, the police force, the government, these government bodies with all their vast resources were working for us on my identity theft. We thought it was likely that they'd be able to link David to my identity theft. I mean, looking at all the strengths and weaknesses side by side of both parties, it looked like an even match up on paper. But just thinking about trying to fight David made us feel like we were up against an impossible enemy. We sat down to eat breakfast and continued talking over what we would do. Both of us called in sick to work so that we could start preparing. All right. I posted our leases up for sale on Craigslist, I said, putting my phone down. Clark was sniffing the air with a confused expression. He leaned over and I smelled his cereal. Does this smell bad to you? Yes. I sniffed. Smells like cereal to me.
Must be stormy outside.
It smells bad to me. He dumped the cereal in the sink. Clark pulled out his phone and called Equifax, letting them know that he wanted to freeze his credit for 90 days. When those 90 days were up, he would call again and again until this matter was resolved to protect his credit. His credit card with a $3,000 limit was still accessible to us, but no new credit card could be applied for. He then went on every account that he had online and changed every password to be random gibberish. He signed up for an online password manager and put his passwords in there. The password manager worked by only storing an encrypted file on the server. He would download his encrypted file from the password manager website, read or write to the file, re-encrypt it, and then send it back to the server. The server only held the encrypted file, no passwords. Even if this company got hacked, the hackers would only have a bunch of useless encrypted files. They could crack the files with time, sure, but it was the best that we could do. The only account that he didn't put into the password manager was his bank account information. He wrote down half of the username on one small scrap of paper, and the other half on the other. He did the same with the password. He intended to hide them in safe places around town. If David got a hold of Clark's bank information, we were dead in the water. While he did that, I finished both of our inventories to hand over to the police as soon as they opened for the day. Once the station opened, we were going to head over, hand in our inventories, file a police report for the burglary, and recommend David as a possible suspect. I also planned to point them to my identity theft police report and state that I suspected David to be guilty of that as well. Once we had the police report, we would go to our landlord and request for the locks to be changed, using the police report as evidence of the break-in. The tech had told us that the door had been opened regularly and not forced. That meant David had somehow made a copy of our key. As it got closer to 9 a.m., we got into Clark's car and drove around town. He got out at 4 locations and hid his scraps of paper somewhere. He knew it had to be somewhere people didn't touch for months at a time and wouldn't be damaged or moved by sprinklers, storms, etc. I didn't know where he hid them, but he assured me they were safe. After they were hidden, we drove to the police station to file our report. We waited patiently for an officer to see us. Once we were called over, we took a seat and told him about the break-in and that a police report had been started, and we were now turning in an inventory of our stolen things. "We have a suspect for the burglary," I said at last. "Okay. Who?" "His name is David King. He used to be a friend of mine, but not anymore." "What happened?" he asked, writing the name down. "Recently, I had my identity stolen," I said. "I suspect that he's behind that. So, if he stole my identity, it's likely that he broke in, too. He hates me." "Okay. But what exactly happened that made you not friends anymore?" I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain the situation. If anyone could think of a better way to explain the situation to a cop, let me know. I only said we had a major fight and he threatened to ruin my life. When was the fight? About a year ago. And you think he's just now stealing your identity and breaking into your house? The cop said dubiously. Were you friends with him? He asked, gesturing to Clark. No, I'm his roommate, he replied, pointing at me. Okay, boys. The officer sighed, scooting forward. Thank you for the tip and your inventories. We'll investigate this just like any other crime. Give it our best effort. Can I get copies of your driver's licenses and phone numbers so that I can contact you if I have any questions? We handed him our licenses and wrote down our phone numbers in the file. I'll be right back, he said, taking the licenses to make copies. We looked at each other for a minute, taking a deep breath. He doesn't believe us, I said, in resignation. We'll find evidence, he encouraged me. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then the officer came back, 2 others at his side. Clark Ulysses, he asked. Yes, Clark said, confused. You're under arrest for vandalism and trespassing on private property. The officers flanked him and pulled him to his feet. I stared at the cops in bewilderment. Clark's eyes were wide. When I went to copy your license, the cop said, holding it up, I checked it against our records. Last night, someone called in a report that you'd been in their home and sprayed thief on their house, then attacked him when he came out to stop you. My mouth dropped open. Son of a bitch. David King, the one you recommended as a suspect, was the one who called in. Seems to me like you're trying to discredit him before he reported you. Guess he beat you to it. Read him his rights, he said to the other officers. Wait, I said, standing up. Hold on, I was there too. It wasn't just him. Clark shook his head at me ever so slightly. No. I wasn't going to let him take the fall for that. Mr. King explicitly stated that there was only one vandal and that he watched Mr. Ulysses sneak up to the house and spray it himself. I know that you're trying to protect your friend, but don't throw your life away, kid. One of the other officers started reading Clark his Miranda rights while they cuffed him and walked him towards the door leading to the inmate processing. Call my mom for bail. I'll be out soon, Clark shouted behind him. Don't let him win. Hello, Xander. Out for a walk? Fuck you. I spat, my cheek jammed up against the table's edge.
This story, I also remember, had a repeating part in it in the complete version.
We're having a nice...
As far as I remember, there is no difference between the two.
I struggled to push my head off the table, but he was so much stronger than me. Stop struggling and listen. I want to clarify the rules of the game since you finally caught on we're still playing. This isn't a game. You ruined my credit, stole my money, hacked my accounts, and stole my shit. I'm gonna kill you. But I'm not gonna kill you. That's the rule. I will not kill you, Xander. That would put an end to your ruined life. And that's not the goal, no. Now, you haven't put any effort into ruining my life. Why not? Because I'm not a sick psychopath, I hissed. Clearly not, he said coolly. But this is boring for me. I'm doing all the work making you fight for life, while you're doing nothing to improve me. Not that I haven't learned anything. But it'd be more fun if you'd fight back. I'll even let Clark help you, but I think you need motivation. You think I need motivation to hurt you? As if. Yes, you do need it. Because despite everything that's happened to you, your only attempt to fight back was pathetic. I need you to up your game and fight harder. So that's where some motivation kicks in. He reached his left hand into his pocket and pulled out a smartphone. He tapped on it a few times before holding it up to his ear. It's me, he said when the other line picked up. Put her on. Then he held the phone to my ear. Someone was crying.
Say hello.
The gruff voice said.
Hello?
Katie. Jesus Christ, he kidnapped Katie. You motherfucker, I yelled. Ease on the language, Xander. David smiled, talking as if he had asked me to eat my vegetables. Katie, where are you? I said desperately into the phone. David took the phone away and hung up, sticking it into his back pocket.
You understand the rules now, Xander? Are you motivated?
I'm gonna kill you, you son of a bitch. You'll burn in hell.
Now. This isn't a theoretical discussion, David tutted.
You and Clark do your best to ruin my life. Do whatever you want, but if you kill me, I kill Katie.
Can't kill her if you're dead, I growled.
No, my friend will. It's amazing the kind of people you can meet online. He's just as excited to play as I am. Do you have any questions before the game really starts? What the hell happened to you? We were best friends.
Things change,
He said.
I've been dreaming of this game for years now.
You were my only real friend that I could do this with. One day, I decided to just go for it.
You've ruined your own life by trying to ruin mine.
Once you're convicted of identity theft and kidnapping, your life is over. Well, that's part of the game. Can't ruin me if you can't convict me. I've been preparing for years. He grinned. His eyes were dark and menacing. Don't you think that's unfair to me? How am I supposed to put in a good effort if you've been preparing for years?
I'll consider giving you some advice,
He admitted, looking thoughtful.
In the meantime, do your best.
And tell Clark to play along because I'll have some motivation for him too. The sound of scrambling on the back fence alerted us to someone's presence. I shouted for help and David slapped me, but lightly. I tried to see who it was from my limited movement. Clark's face appeared over the fence.
That's my cue to leave,
David said with a smile.
It's been good catching up with you, Xander.
Clark shot across the yard, yelling for David to piss off. David just stood there, looking at me and waiting. That's when Clark caught up and punched him square in the face. David flew to the ground and released my head. I stood up and rubbed my sore face. David started to get up, but Clark kicked him in the side. "Stay down," he said. A light went on in the house behind us. We both turned to look. I had the thought to hold David here until the police arrived. When we turned back around, David was halfway down the street. Clark started to take off, but I grabbed his arm. "Stop. Let him go," I said in defeat. "I have something to tell you." We made a quiet decision to avoid the cops tonight. We wanted to file a report with them on our terms, not having to explain what we were doing trespassing in the middle of the night. We jogged back to his car and went home. We sat on the living room couch as I told Clark about David's conversation. Clark was staring dumbfounded at me. "I thought you said he used to be a friend." "He did." "And he never acted like this?" "No. Well, not to me." "This is insane," Clark said, standing up from the couch. "He's kidnapped Katie just so that you'll try to ruin his life and follow along with some stupid dare? Is he crazy? He's going to be caught." "Let's hope so," I said. "But we should start planning. I'm not taking any chances while he has Katie." "Okay, man." "I have nothing to do with this at all, but I also want to help you. If it was anyone else, I'd nope the fuck out. Let's get started." I don't know how much detail I want to put in here, because it'll likely get slow and boring for you. We stayed up all night, mapping out events, people, weaknesses, strengths, everything that we could think of. We filled half a notebook with all our notes. These were the weaknesses that we could come up with that we could potentially use against David. Boredom with life, so we could make the game too boring to continue. His mom, if she knew what was going on, she might be able to get him to stop. I know some of you commented that we should kidnap Miss K and use her, but we were still very green and had no desire to do that kind of shit to David. Work, we get him fired, make sure no one would hire him again. Online accounts, do the same thing that he'd been doing to me. Police, if we could come up with hard evidence to get him convicted, the problem would be solved. Katie. Since he had kidnapped Katie, the police would definitely get involved. I mean, I could easily report my suspicions about David, and they'd search him for the tiniest bits of evidence. Then we looked at the strengths and things to look out for. He was prepared. He obviously had a timeline he had been following and knew what he was doing. Time, junk mail, credit card incidents, these had all been done before I felt the effects. And this meant that there could be other traps that David had set up that would go off like a time bomb. Physical body, clear that for tonight, he'd been working out a ton and practicing, and probably training for his job as a security guard. Money, I mean, he had lots of money from all those fraud charges that I and my parents had received. Friends? If he had a friend who was willing to get involved in a kidnapping, then there'd be 2 or possibly more psychopaths to worry about now. Knowledge. He knew how to use fraud without being caught yet, and hack computers, or at least hire someone to do it for him. We had no idea what other dangerous knowledge he might have, so we made a list of things that he could know that we should learn how to counter. I won't list it here because it'd be pretty long. Willingness to break the law. I mean, it was clear that the law was not part of the rules of the game for him. He was either unafraid to be caught or confident that he never would be. After we looked at David, we looked at ourselves. First, our weaknesses, knowledge. We didn't have nearly the amount of knowledge that David had. Not just knowledge about how to do things like fix a pipe, but also knowledge about David, who his friends were, where he worked, who he talked to, etc. We'd have to start learning like crazy to try to catch up. Money, we had no money left. Clark was limited because he just spent a ton on a plasma TV that was just stolen. Our home and car, David knew where we lived. We planned to
Okay.
Nothing we could do about that. So we moved and had some money.
Looks like
when it was necessary.
looks like we're about
No matter
looks
where
like
we
we're
lived.
done.
If he could find our car, he knew how to follow us home.
Hopefully.
I mean, there was Katie. Katie's motivation. We might have to rethink literally everything. It was fear.
Whoa.
Clark and I knew that deep down David terrified us more than he angered us. I would rather
Looks about right.
away than exact revenge.
All right.
We were all afraid and unwilling
So
to do
yeah.
a lot of things David had
There we
already
go. Here's our NavMesh for Golgan's Lair. As you can tell,
done. Here are our
it
strengths.
was a lot easier at the beginning because we could make bigger triangles because of how flat the area was.
Clark's credit
But
so far
then the
has been
triangles had to get
targeted
so
at
much
Clark
smaller because of the amount of hills and stuff.
to protect him.
And ultimately, I was just like,
We had jobs.
fuck it.
We could therefore earn money unless David found a way to get us fired from them. We needed to come up with a way to protect our jobs from David. That's true. The FTC, the police force, the government, these government bodies with all their vast resources were working for us on my identity theft. We thought it was likely that they'd be able to link David
Okay.
to my identity theft. I mean, looking at all the strengths and weaknesses side by side of both parties, it looked like an even match up on paper. But just thinking about trying to fight David made us feel like we were up against an impossible enemy. We sat down to eat breakfast and continued talking over.
I'm going
what
to
we
take that
learned.
one out. Kind of what I want to do.
Both of us called in sick to work so that we could start preparing. All right. I posted our leases up for sale on Craigslist, I said, putting my phone down.
Okay.
Clark was sniffing the air with a confused expression. He leaned over
Let's-
and smelled the cereal. Does this smell bad to you? Yes.
Let's give it a launch.
Smells like
See if it
cereal.
works. And if it does, then we're good.
Smells bad to me. He dumped the cereal in the sink. Clark pulled out his phone and called Equifax, letting them know that he wanted to freeze his credit for 90 days. When those 90 days were up, he would call again and again until this matter was resolved to protect his credit. His credit card with a $3,000 limit was still accessible to us, but no new credit card could be applied for. He then went on every account that he had online and changed every password to be random gibberish. He signed up for an online password manager and put his passwords in there. The password manager worked by only storing an encrypted file on the server. He would download his encrypted file from the password manager website, read or write
Okay,
the file,
let's see.
encrypt it, and then send it back to the server. The server only held the encrypted file, no passwords. Even if this company got hacked, the hackers would only have a bunch of useless encrypted files. They could crack the files with time, sure, but it was the best that we could do. The only account that he didn't put into the password manager was his bank account information. He wrote down half of the username on one small scrap of paper, and the other half on the other. He did the same with the password. He intended to hide them in safe places around town. If David got a hold of Clark's bank information, we were dead in the water. While he did that, I finished both of our inventories to hand over to the police as soon as they opened for the day. Once the station opened, we were going to head over, hand in our inventories, file a police report for the burglary, and recommend David as a possible suspect. I also planned to point them to my identity theft police report and state that I suspected David to be guilty of that as well. Once we had the police report, we would go to our landlord and request for the lock to be changed, using the police report as evidence of the break-in. The tech had told us that the door had been opened regularly and not forced. That meant David had somehow made a copy of our key. As it got closer to 9 a.m., we got into Clark's car and drove around town. He got out at 4 locations and hid his scraps of paper somewhere. He knew it had to be somewhere people didn't touch for months at a time, and wouldn't be damaged or moved by sprinklers, storms, etc. I didn't know where he hid them, but he assured me they were safe. After they were hidden, we drove to the police station to file our report. We waited patiently for an officer to see us. Once we were called over, we took a seat and told him about the break-in, and a police report had been started, and we were now turning in an inventory of our stolen things. We have a suspect for the burglary, I said at last. Okay. Who? His name is David King. He used to be a friend of mine, but not anymore. What happened? He asked, writing the name down. Recently, I had my identity stolen, I said. I suspect that he's behind it. If he stole my identity, it's likely that he broke into not friends with him. I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain the situation. Anyone could think of a better way to explain the situation to a cop to let me know. I only said we had a major fight and he threatened to ruin my life. Fight. About a year ago. And you think he's just now stealing your identity and breaking into your house? Cop said previously. Are you friends with him? Yeah, I'm his friend.
Ooh, good shot.
The officer sighed, scooting forward. Thank you for the tip and your inventories. We'll investigate this just like any other crime. Give it up our stuff. Can I get copies of your if I have we handed him the licenses and looked down the to make copies. We looked at each other and took a deep breath. He doesn't believe us, I said, in resignation. We'll find evidence, he encouraged me. 5 minutes passed. Then,
That might need a fixing.
Clark, you listen. Clark said, confused. You're under arrest for vandalism and trespassing on private property. The officers flanked him and pulled him to his feet. I stared at the cops in bewilderment. Clark's eyes were wide. When I went to copy your license, the cop said, holding it up, I checked it against our record.
It's him.
And called in a report that you'd been in their home and sprayed in their house, then attacked him when he came out to stop him. My mouth was open. Son of a bitch. David King, the one you recommended as a suspect, was the one who said it. Seems to me that you're trying to discredit him before he reported you. Yes, you beat you too. Freedom is right, said the other officer. Wait. Hold on, I was there too. It wasn't just him. He shook his head at me. He was like, no. I wasn't going to let him take the fall for that. Mr. King explicitly stated that there was only one vandal, that he watched Mr. Ulysses sneak
Well, that
outside
works.
and sprayed himself. I know that you're trying to protect your friend, but don't throw your life away, kid. One of the other officers started reading Clark his Miranda rights while they cuffed him and walked him towards the door leading to...
Could use a little variety up top. Maybe you can put some boulders and rocks around.
Let him win.
But honestly, the lighting I think is okay. I kind of agree. Maybe a little bit more
I
foliage.
called Clark's mom right away.
Honestly, it's only when I'm in the kit itself is when this looks the most plain. I don't think I want to put trees anywhere else. Like any more stumps or anything. But foliage, I would be okay with putting some more foliage down.
She agreed to drive down that day and post bail for him. She lived a few hours away, so she said she'd be here at around 5 p.m. The county we were in didn't allow online payments via credit card, cash only. So she had to physically drive down. In the middle of a phone call...
Yeah, it feels weird kind of having foliage next to these trees and just a big open dirt patch here. Maybe some more foliage here too.
Hi, I missed a call from this number.
Kind of around here-ish.
Hi, is this Xander? Yeah, who's this? Xander? I'm Katie's mom. Your parents gave me your number? Shit. Hi. Hi. Can't talk right now. I'm in a rush and she's cutting me off. Have you heard from Katie? She didn't come home last night. Your mom gave me your number.
Oh yeah, I
She told me
forgot
you
about
knew.
those bushes, man. Maybe I'll put some more
She's
bushes
not?
down.
I said. I'm not sure where she is. I have to go. I'll call you back. I hung up the phone. I didn't want to talk to her about Katie because I was about to file her missing person report. I walked over to the reception desk. I was just talking to an officer and then he arrested my friend and walked off. I need to talk to the officer on my case about my identity fraud. What case number? The lady asked. A while later, I was sitting in front of one of the interrogation rooms after asking...
Don't know what just happened, but my restream
sat on the other side of the metal table.
looks like it logged me out for some reason.
Was on the table in front of him.
So I can't see chat, unfortunately.
Trying to familiarize himself with the break and report. A tape recorder sat between us. He pressed a button on the recorder, and the tape started rolling. He stated his name, my name, my case number, the date, and the time. All right.
Maybe I just need to put some...
So I submitted a report for
Maybe I just need to put some there.
and I haven't heard anything about it. And the FTC can take some time to respond, he replied. Well, now there's a new report from a break-in in my apartment. I was talking to another officer earlier and told him that I had a suspect for both crimes. Yeah, the detective said, looking over one of the folders. He had both cases on the table. One David King, correct? Looks like it was written in your file. Yeah, David King. He used to be a friend of mine, but now he hates me and well, he's been targeting me. Targeting you how? Most recently, he kidnapped my girlfriend Katie. This caught his attention. He pulled a pen from his front pocket. When was this? He asked, setting his pen on the blank page. Last night. When we went to go graffiti his house. He chased us and pinned me to a table. He called someone on the phone and had them put Katie on the phone. They heard her voice and he claimed that he'd kidnapped her to motivate me. Motivate you to do what? Hernandez asked. I told him about the Dare conversation. Then all the junk mail. My online accounts, the credit card fraud, my parents' credit being targeted, my car's windows, the break-in, my...
Maybe a bit more foliage and like more of like this light. It's light in the area, maybe.
Hernandez took copious notes. It just keeps escalating, I said in defeat. I watched Hernandez carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. I couldn't tell what he believed. I need more details about the phone call, he said at last. What did she
But
say?
other than that,
What did you say? What did you hear in the
looks like it works really well.
We talked through everything for an hour.
All right.
Nothing I said was
So,
finding Katie.
until we make the entrance area into the next
Xander,
space,
to be honest, this all sounds very
loose.
Until then, we're done with nav meshing.
Connections linking David to all these crimes. There's nothing that can be done about the identity theft until the FTC has finished their investigation.
So,
The break-in, broken windows, hacked accounts, and empty
pretty
bank
cool.
accounts will have to
I
prove
might
their own
increase
identity.
Gulgan's
Prove
level.
David
He
committed
seemed a
the crime.
little easy.
To you, this is all one time.
But,
but to the
yeah.
law, they are separate crimes that have to be treated with no regard for past
Oh, I'm
actions,
sorry.
he said. His tone was reasonable and concerned. I believe you, but I can't make an arrest without witnesses or hard evidence. Your story is circumstantial at best, but I do believe you.
I will be right
when you
back.
say that they're connected. Because finally, someone believes me. What did the text said about the break-in? I asked. They said they found a few fingerprints. All the fingerprints found belong to each of you and a few other people who used to live there. According to the file, they've all been confirmed as past residents. What about the ATM cameras? Now that's something unfortunate, he said, looking through the folder again. We got a call from your bank to file a fraud report. It was smart of you to go through the bank to report the fraud. My boss made it a priority, and since it was your same name, it was added to your file on identity theft. I've been the one personally working on your identity theft case. Once I received the case, I called the convenience store at the ATM. They gave me the brand of the ATM so I could request footage from the company. Problem is, that ATM doesn't have a camera. What? How can an ATM not have a camera? Not all brands do. Some ATMs don't have cameras built in, and this was one of them. Someone logged into your online bank account right before the ATM transaction, moved all of your money from savings to your checking account, and they also increased your ATM withdrawal limit to $5,000 while online, which was above the $3,500 that you had in your account. Normally, you can only withdraw $500 per day. What about the store's cameras? I practically shouted. I asked for them to bring the footage down. They said they'll be in today, he said. But where's the store? I want to see this for myself. No, he said firmly. I may have inclination to lean towards your theory, but I will collect the evidence myself and a court will decide. You steer clear. Then drive down yourself right now, goddammit! I yelled. He stood slightly, his hand reaching for his belt automatically. Calm down, he said, looking me in the eyes. I have no money, I shouted. My car windows are smashed and I can't repair them. My rent will be due and I'll have no way to pay. I can't get to work in a car. I can't drive. I need my money back. Hernandez sighed, sitting back down. I breathed heavily. If David is the one who used your information to commit your credit card fraud, why would he steal a measly $3,500 from you? He asked. Because he's dead set on ruining my life, I muttered. That's the dare. He's taken it too far, further than any sane person would. He's sick. I just want it to stop, I said. I cried a little, and Hernandez let me sit in silence for a minute, with tears rolling down my cheeks. What about Katie? I asked after a while. The kidnapping is going to get on top priority. That's the one case that has a witness, you. I won't be working on it, but someone in a different section of the department will be. The other detective will want to interview you today and get started. Let's do it then, I said, wiping my eyes. Hernandez stepped out and returned a while later with the detective. Detective White came in and probed me with hundreds of questions. Where did she work? Who were her friends? How long had we been together? When did I last see her? Do her parents know? Questions like that. When I brought up David and the phone call, he leaned in and asked me the same questions about what I'd heard, what we'd said, and anything I could remember. Again, I didn't remember anything helpful. I'll need to bring David in for questioning, Detective White said. Your testimony's decent, but we'll need more evidence for conviction. I can't arrest him because I need more proof. If we arrest him without enough proof, he'll walk free and can't be tried again. You had enough proof to arrest Clark? I shouted. Clark? Detective White asked. I was just talking with an officer who said David called in and told you all that Clark graffitied his house, and all he had to do was call and he got arrested. White excused himself to find out more about what had happened. He came back in 5 minutes later. David has more proof on that case, Detective said. Photographs on the graffiti, photographs of Clark coming up to the house, his own testimony about recognizing Clark, and a bruised face. Clark's hand is also cut up, which corroborates his story. We noticed it when we booked him. This is the kind of evidence we need to convict in a kidnapping. Right now we have your testimony stating you said hello to Katie on the phone, and that David said he'd kidnapped her. We need more evidence to convince a jury. But I was with Clark, I yelled. In the pictures, you weren't.
he said. Then they're fakes! An expert will check them and determine that. I sat back in my chair, feeling defeated. Detective White thanked me for my testimony and left to contact Katie's parents. Detective Hernandez sat back down, watching me as tears welled up in my eyes again. Let me pay for your windows, he said. It won't matter, he'll break them again the next day. He's broken them more than once. Every time I repair them, they're smashed again the next day. I might have an idea, he said, but I'll need approval from my boss. If you haven't heard of entrapment in the context of police investigation, it's a legal defense that's used when evidence can be shown that an officer induces a criminal to commit a crime that they wouldn't otherwise commit. When this defense is used, there are two differing views. In some courts, if a defendant uses entrapment as a defense, the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the criminal was not entrapped. In other courts, the defense has to prove that it was entrapped. The state I was in required the prosecution to do the proving. Hernandez recognized that his plan could be construed as entrapment, and he explained this to me as we walked to the boss's office. He told me that since David had already established a pattern of breaking my windows, Hernandez could set up surveillance on the car and just wait for David to commit the crime that he was going to do anyway. Since I had repaired my windows twice, and had kept the receipts, that would serve as good evidence that the crime had been repetitive. The idea made me hopeful. I sat outside his boss's office while he walked in and presented the idea. When he walked out, he gave me a thumbs up. David would never know what hit him. Hernandez drove me to my house where I picked up my car and took it to a repair shop. He followed me over there and paid. We drove to my work in Hernandez's car while they worked on it. Hernandez ordered us some lunch. I talked to my boss. I told him about my bank account getting hacked and that I needed to cancel direct deposit. Luckily, payroll was next week, so they'd be able to change the method of payment by the next paycheck. I told him about my situation, and Hernandez backed me up. He agreed to pay some of my wages in advance out of the store's petty cash until payday came, and I was to pay him back. I thanked him profusely for helping me out and apologized for having to call in sick that day. I walked out with a full stomach, $335 and a calm mind. With any luck, I'd catch David tonight. Hernandez took me back to my shop and I picked up my car. I tried to pay for the money I was received, but he refused, saying I could pay him back after this was all resolved. He told me he'd be at my house later to start the surveillance and just park my car up the street. I thanked him again before we parted. It was about 3 p.m. when I got home. I parked my car several blocks away and next to several others for camouflage. I didn't want David to find it and smash the windows before tonight. The walk was hot, and cool air conditioning was welcome to me in my home. "Excuse me?" someone asked timidly as I unlocked my front door. I peeked my head back outside. There was an older woman on the landing, probably in her 40s. "Yes," I replied. "You live in that apartment, I'm guessing?" she said. "Yeah." "I'm Mrs. Watson. I believe you and my son are roommates." Oh, hello," I said, extending my hand. "Whose mom are you?" "Isaac," she replied. "He and I were supposed to be driving out of state to visit family yesterday, but he never showed up." A chill ran up my spine. "I've called him 1,000 times, but he hasn't answered," she continued. "I've been standing here ringing the bell for a while, but no one's been home. Can I go knock on his door?" I considered asking her to leave or telling her that I wasn't comfortable with her coming in, but I knew that would have been suspicious. I knew what we were going to find. I told her to come in, and instantly the smell overtook us. She tried to be polite and not offend me, probably thinking we were typical college guys living like pigs. She walked down the hall to Isaac's room. "Oh, God," she muttered. The smell must have been horrific right next to the door. I shuddered, but went down the hall towards her. She knocked. "Isaac?" she called. No answer, as I expected. "Isaac, it's Mom," she said. I think the smell made her start to panic because she pounded on the door harder. "Isaac, open up, please," she pleaded desperately. I sighed. Gently, I guided her away from the door and braced myself. I took a running start and slammed into the door. It bent heavily, but the latch didn't break. I tried again, and on the fourth try, the door wrenched open. And I was inside. The smell. God. I don't know how many times I can tell you about it until you understand. This is one of those moments where I'll remember every detail forever. Isaac's room was a mess. There were 3 bookshelves that likely used to have tons of books, but the shelves were torn apart, books scattered across the room. His computer desk had papers scattered across it and cups knocked over. The window was darkened by a blackout curtain used for gaming, and the large gaming computer under the desk hummed, and the monitor showed stars moving around for a screensaver. Isaac was on the bed. His face was pale and patchy with purple lines. His arms and legs were white and also bruised. An extension cord trailed off the bed, the middle being wrapped around his neck several times. Some flies nested on his body, flying to another spot occasionally.
Oh boy.
Mrs. Watson entered the room and screamed. I just stood there, staring at Isaac's dilapidated body. David had jumped to murder. I called the police and tried to get Mrs. Watson to leave the apartment and preserve the crime scene. She refused and sat sobbing next to Isaac's bed. She was afraid to touch him. The police came immediately and escorted Mrs. Watson and I out of the apartment. The next few hours were a blur of questions and police. Hernandez showed up and looked inside. Techs were carrying in cameras and briefcases full of equipment, and after a while, they started to carry out some of Isaac's belongings in bags. His gaming computer took 2 techs to carry out. I sat on the curb nearby, not allowed to leave by the head officer who was running the scene. Hernandez sat next to me. They broke into your other roommate's door. All his belongings are there, but your roommate isn't. Do you know where he is? No, I replied. I never talked to him much. Were you close to Isaac? No. But it's still... I know. Do you think David is behind this too? Probably, I said, feeling numb. We'll still carry out the surveillance, he assured me. Don't worry, they'll analyze Isaac's body, and if they find so much as a fleck of skin that can link David, we'll nail him. No criminal is perfect. Hernandez left me alone, and I thought over the situation. Then a car parked nearby. And out stepped Clark with his mom. I jumped up and ran over to him. My God, Clark, are you okay? I asked. I'm fine, he smiled reassuringly. Posted bail, it was $350, so not awful. I thought you said you'd be here by 5, I asked Clark's mom. Side note, I don't remember the exact time she got there, but I do remember that she was earlier than expected. I was going to meet them both at the station. I may have broke a few speed limits, she said in a neutral tone. What happened? Clark's face suddenly went cold when he saw the policeman near our door. Isaac was found, I said, in his room. I didn't have to specify what state he was in. Jesus Christ, Clark gasped, putting his hand over his knees. He started hyperventilating, and his mom worriedly put a hand on his back. Clark, honey, let's go for a drive. You can get your stuff later. Your stuff? I asked. He's moving out, his mom said sharply. He told me all this sick game that your friend is playing. I don't think it's very funny. It's not funny, I shouted. It never was. This fucking asshole's trying to ruin my life. It's not a game. A few of the policemen turned to watch me from the balcony. Her jaw tightened, and she guided her hyperventilating son into the car. They drove away, and I was left in the middle of the street, watching my best friend leave me to handle David alone. The police took Isaac out in a body bag. Mrs. Watson left with his body, still sobbing uncontrollably. I was told that I couldn't go into my apartment until they were completely done with the crime scene. No, they didn't know when that would be. They suggested a hotel room, which I laughed at. I asked if I could grab a blanket and pillow from my room so I could sleep in my car. They reluctantly brought it to me, and I gagged when I grabbed them. They smelled like death. Hernandez offered to get me a motel room or let me stay at his place, or even begged me to call a friend and stay with them. I refused all 3. I walked to my car and ignored Hernandez. I was still too mad about everything and devastated that Clark had left. Besides, We couldn't do surveillance on my car while I slept in it. I marched all the way to my car and slammed the door hard. I decided I didn't feel safe parking near my house to sleep, so I went to a Walmart parking lot for the night. It was as if fate had finally begun to root for me. I was walking towards the Walmart entrance from the parking lot to buy some food when I was only a few cars away. An armored truck pulled up. The ones that carry money over to the bank, you know what I mean. And who do you think steps out of the truck? David fucking King. I strafed to my left and got behind a car, using the back-tinted windows to observe. He was laughing with his partner, who got out the passenger side. I was too far away to hear what they were saying, but I definitely didn't recognize the partner as anyone I knew. It was obviously paranoia, but I wondered if he could be the one who made Katie speak into the phone. The two of them walked into the Walmart, and I took note of the company that owned the truck. And then I had an idea. My first idea on how I could fight back, now that I knew where David was right this second. I sprinted back to my car. A little while later, I pulled up to Mrs. K's house. I got out and looked around, making sure that David hadn't somehow beaten me here or followed me. I had to hurry. Who knew how much longer his shift would last? I knocked on the door, and Mrs. K opened up. "Hello, Xander," she said cheerfully. "Hi, Mrs. K. Can I come in?" 5 minutes later, I was rifling through David's room. Had to hurry. Had to find something useful and fast. I told Mrs. K that years ago, I let David borrow a video game and just now remembered and wanted to pick it up. She had happily let me go into his room and find it. I had booted up his ancient laptop, but it was taking forever to load. Why the hell hadn't he bought a new laptop with all the money that he stole? That would have made good evidence. I glanced at every paper I saw, hoping for something, written plans, a checklist, a receipt, anything. Every paper I found was normal. From what I could see, his room was a disaster, which worked in my favor. He may have dropped something incriminating and not known about it. I stuffed every flash drive I could find into my pockets as I went. He had 4 of them lying around. They must have incriminating evidence on them. The laptop finally booted, and I instantly tried to log in. No luck. Password protected. I mean, I should have known, considering how tech-savvy he'd been in hacking my accounts. In fact, all the incriminating data was probably on the laptop. He wouldn't bother printing anything out. And that gave me an idea. I picked up the laptop and flipped it over. A toolbox laid under the table, and I snatched a screwdriver from it. Using the screwdriver, I went to work disassembling the laptop, and when I finished, I held his hard drive up in my hand. "I'll ruin you, David King," I whispered. As I reassembled the laptop, something caught my eye under the bed. A box. Furrowing my eyebrows, I pulled it towards me. It was a shoebox with dust covering the top. A few spots were left dusty where someone had handled the lid. I opened it slowly and peered inside. It contained a 1/4-inch thick stack of papers, all bound together by a binder clip. The box was too small to let the pad lay flat, so it curled in the box. The pages were old and worn. They'd clearly been handled frequently. I lifted it out and noticed that it looked like a research paper. The front page had a title in the middle of the page and an author at the bottom. Psychological Evaluation for David Edward King. The bottom of the page had the name of the institute and psychologist that had done the study, as well as the year. I did the math, and the evaluation must have been done when he was 16. Jackpot. I stuffed it under my shirt as best as I could to hide its square form. The laptop was set back in its place as if it had never moved. David would know something was wrong eventually, but not until he booted it up. I gave a last look around and wondered if there was anything else I should do. With no decent ideas, I left David's house. Mrs. K gave me a brownie on my way out. On the drive back from Walmart, I tried to come up with a plan. I couldn't take this to the police station because it was illegally obtained evidence and wouldn't be admissible in court. I knew that from a bunch of crime shows, I had to get at the evidence myself and somehow get it into the police's hands legally. When I parked at the Walmart, it still wasn't that late. I walked inside carrying the flash drives and psychological evaluation with me. I used the demo computers to look at the contents of the flash drives. Looking back now, I'm amazed they let USB sticks work on the demo machines. The first flash drive had old high school papers on it. Nothing useful there. The second and third were bootable drives that could boot Linux. I didn't expect anyone to understand what that meant. It's not important. But it was the fourth drive that I had my first breakthrough of evidence. It contained that had been edited the day before. As I read through it, I realized that my current understanding of flash drive was how he and his kidnapping partner communicated. David would write a message and hide the flash drive in a predetermined place, and the kidnapper would go pick it up and read the message. the process would revert. When it's a lot of you would probably say, why didn't they just encrypt the emails? That's so much faster and safer. If they had used any kind of network to communicate, some internet service provider or some cell phone provider like Comcast would have a log entry of the messages being exchanged. Even if the data was encrypted, encrypted data is never 100% secure. If you dedicate enough processing power, you can crack any encryption. It may take thousands of years in some cases, but it could still be cracked. With our current advances in computing power, that could change to be even faster. David and his partner had reduced their risk of being caught by limiting who had access to the information. If you send an email to me via Reddit, I'm not the only one who gets the message. It passes through several servers and routers who all make a note that a message passed through at a specific time. It leaves a trail. Unless you can erase the logs of those servers, you leave a trail.
May have to fix that too.
There was certainly risk that someone could find it and find all the messages I had. But that could be reduced by choosing decent hiding places.
Oh, I forgot to do that.
Don't leave it running around, especially don't leave it unencrypted. You don't understand why it was encrypted. The text file would have a line, then skip a line and add another where the next response was. I don't have a flash drive of this conversation anymore, so my paraphrase has actually exactly enough of the here, so it's easy. Payment received? Yes. Last half of payment comes when it's all over. How long? Depends on him. Good. No suspicion. Quiet grab. Was she harmed? She fought. Couple bruises. Otherwise fine. There were some extra lines in between, marking the state of a new conversation. Any information? Kidnapping report was
Okay.
filed with the police.
So at least that's kind of fixed, but there's a few things I gotta tweak.
We have enough in the truck to keep moving.
So, a few things I gotta tweak. I gotta, well, I suppose I don't have to tweak this. I don't have to tweak that. I do kind of want to tweak that, though. I could make it something a little bit different, maybe, but that's probably my least priority. The other last couple of things I want to do is, first of all, actually, I might as well just do this right now since I'm literally right here. Reason the bear couldn't cross over here is because of this. Okay, that should be good for him now. But throw more plants in. The other stuff, and then we'll be good. But I'm done. Done for the night. We'll finish it off on Saturday. Sweet. So yeah, I'm out. Goodbye.